welcome to Doors and Corners, a sci-fi and fantasy film commentary podcast. I'm Brian.
And I'm Zach. And every Friday we sit down and watch a science fiction or fantasy film and give our 2 cents on its quality, production, story, and trivia.
We watch the film together, but without sounds or visuals provided to avoid copyright issues. But if you do have access, we encourage you to join us and follow along.
Here, we like to keep things casual, and there may be discussions of spoilers or sensitive materials or language. But we do try and keep things clean and family-friendly. Ultimately, the goal of this podcast is to create the experience of us all sitting down and watching this movie together.
So get ready to hit that play button, because we're about to get started.
Damn doors and corners, that's where they get you.
Welcome back to Doors and Corners. I'm Brian.
Mm-hmm. And I'm Zach.
And tonight, we are wrapping up Phase 1 of the MCU with The Avengers. No subtitle.
Has such a finality to it. It's
not the culmination
of
Phase
1.
The culmination of Phase 1.
And this is actually like, I would say this movie as a concept, is about 30 years in the making from this.
Yeah.
Because they had talked about doing multiple movies of different characters or TV show and movie characters coming together and doing something both in and out of the superhero genre, but primarily in the superhero genre, for decades. The closest that they got was this like horrible TV movie from like the 80s. And DC was talking about it mid-90s. Marvel was talking about it in the early 2000s. And it didn't get off the ground until 2012.
Well, I remember one of the closest we'd ever gotten was actually on the small screen that Smallville tried to kind of do a Justice League-esque stuff. Their 6th season, I think, or something like that?
Yeah, I think it was like season 6, episode 12 or episode 20. It was called Justice.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously the concept had been there. And, Marvel had done this in animation. I remember 2 direct-to-DVD Avenger films that weren't horrible.
The animated ones?
Yeah.
They were based off of the Ultimates, which have a very, very interesting reputation. It was the 2000 reinvention of the Avengers, which actually did lead to Samuel L. Jackson being cast as Nick Fury, as they changed Nick Fury to literally mirror Samuel L. Jackson, famously without his permission. But also they were dark and edgy and super sexual. Uncomfortable. And the designs of the costumes, so much edge, so Matrix.
Oh yeah, but I mean, you go into the 2000s, the 2 big things, and for me it was like peak. I was finishing up high school when 99. You had the Matrix, Phantom Menace. And then, is it 2001 when Fellowship of the Ring? Right, 2001, I think?
No, earlier than that.
The 2000?
Because 2003... you're right, 2001, because they were a year apart each.
Okay, but to say, so, those were the big ones for me. It's just the big hitters of, oh my gosh, Matrix came out of nowhere, but was, just a game changer. And then Phantom Menace, and I honestly, it doesn't even matter to me that it was disappointing. It was still just such a big deal. And then Fellowship, which was also, I was, just anticipating that film with such incredible anticipation, and it was so good. And then that was kind of it. There was big movies, but after the prequels and Lord of the Rings finished, this was the next, oh my gosh, you were at the theater, the first possible showing, because the anticipation for this thing was so through the roof, at least for me and the group of people I was hanging with.
I was going to say, you're missing a big one, but it's because it's not your
Because it's Harry Potter, right?
Harry Potter.
And see, I completely... We'll talk about Harry Potter when we get to him. Nothing against Harry Potter. I never read the books. I never cared about it. I total love to anybody who loves them. I don't hold that against anybody, and I actually have seen them all, and they're great. But it would just... I didn't care because I didn't know anything about it, other than just people loved it.
Love them.
And that's...
Part of my love is also because I'm a pastor's kid who was told not to read them. And well, my parents actually weren't against them, mind you. Don't want to put that out there, but they didn't want me specifically, because they knew that I would like it, and I was very young at the time. They didn't want me getting into it while I was very young and impressionable. They wanted me to have a better understanding of theology, religion, magic, practical magic before I got into those type of things.
I just you just reminded me. The other one, I don't remember even the year. I was super excited about Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, the live action one that was made.
Yeah.
That was just because it was a big part of my childhood, and I saw the old BBC ones. And that first movie was actually pretty good, but then that just fizzled pretty fast, unfortunately. But
the others weren't terrible, but they just weren't right.
I still don't know.
Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, the music.
Oh, it's amazing. Well, that was the same. That's that composer. I was literally just listening to. No, not the composer. The writing team, the guys who wrote, who went on to. They're the famous Marvel writers. They wrote all the Captain movies, and they wrote Endgame and Infinity War.
The Russos?
No. The pair that wrote them. What's their freaking
The Russos?
No, the Russos directed. They did not write them. Smartass.
They helped.
They did help, but there's a very famous writing team. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to look it up now.
No, I know who you're talking about, and I'm also having trouble. I'm trying to look it up. Actually, I was just using my reactions to cover my ignorance.
They wrote the Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe movies. Yeah. We're talking about. I'm almost there. Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely.
McFeely, that's right.
Those two guys, for insiders know, but like those guys are as influential for how good the Infinity War saga went as Jon Favreau's for starting it, and Joss, love him or hate him, he also Favreau, Whedon, and those guys, along with the Russo brothers, like those are kind of the some of the most key people to shaping the Infinity Saga.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like there's such a duo that
I don't think they have any solo
their
writing
Wikipedia
credits.
Page are the two of them together.
Yeah, but the other big thing they did besides MCU stuff is they wrote all three of the Chronicles of Narnia movies, which makes me a little pissed because I'll give me 2 minutes on this, maybe 1 minute. I don't know how you screw up Dawn Treader. If there is a book ever written that you could just freaking film it, you don't have to even just film it. Just write down the book and shoot it, and it would be amazing because that book is literally written in the shape of like a movie. It's you're trying to sail to the edge of the world to find God, but they're like, I don't know how you mess up that by trying to change a little side note island into the main driving force of the whole thing. Sorry.
I think the issue with that is
that's my big issue.
The book itself doesn't have a plot. It's the Odyssey. It's a point A to point B with lots of little just side things that happen.
But it does though. It does in the context of the Narnia and the idea of like Aslan's country and the end of the world. And I mean, you have Reepicheep talking about we are literally trying to reach the end of the world and Aslan's country. It is the epic journey. You embellish it a little bit. I've had this debate with a few people, and I think that if there was one of the easiest books in the history of books to just shoot it, I think that might be in the top 3.
Yeah, I can see that.
Anyways, but we're talking about Avengers.
Anyway, we are talking about Avengers, and this is the first Avengers movie. This guy came out in 2012. It is directed by Joss Whedon. It is PG-13. It is 2 hours and 23 minutes long, 10 minutes of which is credits. Written by Joss Whedon and Zach Penn. And do I really need to list out the starring on this thing?
There's a few.
Because we have Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, Scarlett Johansson, Jeremy Renner, Mark Ruffalo, Chris Hemsworth, Tom Hiddleston, Clark Gregg, Kroby Smulders, Stellan Skarsgård, Samuel L. Jackson, Gwyneth Paltrow, Paul Bettany, and special guest appearance by a gentleman by the name of Alexis Denisov, which any fans of Buffy and Angel out there, he's a very memorable guy. And also, a special appearance by Powers Booth, a personal favorite of mine.
I was always bummed they never got him back. He's such a an amazing actor.
Well, maybe if you went and watched the absolutely fantastic TV show Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., in which he is the primary antagonist for one whole season.
Really? Okay.
Yes, he is.
Because he's amazing. The guy is. Yeah, that's right. He rest in peace. I still he's done many good roles, but I still just remember him in Tombstone very memorably. It's just
bye.
just
Yes.
I mean, he kind of gets forgotten
Early
about.
Bill Brocious.
Yeah, he gets forgotten about sometimes because Val Kilmer and Michael Biehn, were so good, but he was also amazing in that film. Anyways, this is one of the most stacked movies of all time.
Right.
And it's funny, Alexis Denisov. I always wished he could have gotten more of a live action role. He's like one of the one of Whedon's regulars. That he's a great character actor. He's got a great face, got a great voice. He's done some DC animated stuff, like some voice work. And
some folks may know him from the TV show How I Met Your Mother. He has
Sandy
a recurring
Rivers.
role on that as Sandy Rivers, the pervert.
Oh yeah. Well, because he's married to Allison Hannigan.
Yeah, he's married to Allison Hannigan. He also appeared in the spinoff series to that, How I Met Your Father.
He did?
Mm-hmm.
Huh? I watched like 2 episodes of that, and I was like, I'm good.
Yeah, it's okay. It's fine.
Yeah.
Serviceable. I understand why it got canceled.
But he doesn't even.
Are we ready to start?
His character doesn't even have a name in this, right? He's just like the other or something.
Yeah, he's credited as the other,
and
he gets
the creepy dude on the asteroid.
A very brief appearance. Makes a very brief appearance and gets unceremoniously killed off by Lee Pace in Guardians of the Galaxy.
That's right. All right. Well, we'll have lots to talk about. We got plenty of time here, so
so much to talk about.
Yeah, hit that play button in 3, 2, 1, go.
Play.
And then this is also the final Paramount one, right?
Yes, it is. Final Paramount. It was during post-production of this movie that they were bought out by Disney. And Disney got some of the money for this. It was like split between them. There's the final Paramount logo, vaguely Tesseract-y.
Yeah.
And this immediately commits a huge sin for me in terms of sci-fi fantasy.
You hate opening narration?
I hate opening narrations. Opening narrations are almost always horrible. Aquaman, God. Ugh. Aquaman's narrations, opening and closing, are so bad.
The only 2 things I would say about this is, one, at least they keep it short.
Mm-hmm.
And they're showing you what happens at least, instead of just like, I don't like, I agree with you. Generally it's bad. But when you do like a narration over just like a star field, or something really generic.
Yeah.
At least here they're informing the audience a tiny bit, but I agree with you. It's not good. It's just, in the world of narrations, there are more egregious examples.
It's not horrible. There's because in my head there's like an good, okay, bad scale, and that good, okay, bad scale is literally Black Panther, Avengers, Aquaman. Because Black Panther does it really well.
Yeah. We jump right into this. I mean, this is like basically a cold open here. We do, with no credits, no title. We just jump right into, something with S.H.I.E.L.D. going on. You got Coulson standing here being all, he's got the cool shades on. Even though
Men in Black.
Yeah, it's at night, And we got Robin Scherbatsky.
Obviously, he's... First appearance of Kobe Smulders as Maria Hill, which she did a lot of training for this movie, even though she doesn't have any action sequences. She wanted to.
She does one roll and then she shoots.
Stand physically. Yeah. Which she later does some really good physical stuff in other movies, though then she gets unceremoniously and stupidly killed off in the absolutely abysmal, abominable, horrible TV show Secret Invasion.
Yeah, her death was kind of used as almost a marketing ploy, which was frustrating.
Right?
Go ahead.
No, I've been talking a lot.
I was just saying, I was... Anybody who's listening to this, I'm assuming they've watched this film at some point, so we're not like worrying about spoilers here. I both loved and kind of hated what they did with Coulson in this movie. I love him so much, and I think that he was used well, And I know that you love
Mhm.
Agents of Shield. I was in the
Yeah.
category for a long time that I thought Agents of Shield kind of
Sucked balls.
didn't ruin didn't ruin this, but did cheapen the sacrifice in this film and the use of it as motivation.
I could see that. They tie his resurrection very strongly into the Avengers movies and Captain Marvel, Guardians of the Galaxy. They do a lot of stuff with that. And I actually really liked how they did it. The issue with that show is that it takes literally like the first 12 episodes are fine, like bad to good, and they're just kind of bland. And then the show really picks up, and Clark Gregg is a fantastic lead.
Yeah.
But we should talk about this.
We should, because this is interesting. I think, they do have a little bit, and if you look at like box office returns, a lot of people went and saw this movie that did not see Cap and did not see Thor. So this movie did, and I get it, kind of have to, and they fortunately got away from this later. We're just like, no, you watch Endgame and you're going to Endgame blind. That's your own fault. But at this point, they're still having to write these to a certain extent, explaining things to the audience that you might already know if you had been watching all of them up to this point. And there's just some exposition here, and then it's a little bit the opening of this movie almost feels kind of small.
It kind of does, but this movie feels strangely small if you're watching it from 2025 perspective.
Yeah.
At the time, it was still like pretty big, but this bugs me. Like, I love Tom Hiddleston. I think his being Loki is fantastic. He is a solid villain, but I wish we could have gotten the version where it was a pairing between Red Skull and Loki. I think that would have been really cool.
Yeah.
That was the original plan. This was supposed to be Red Skull appearing, and Loki's like watching them, and he decides to appear to Red Skull and be like, "Hey, you look like you could use some help."
Well, and Red Skull coming back, especially from the end of Cap. I mean, coming back to the Tesseract after being taken from the Tesseract. I mean, it would have absolutely, worked in a way. I also just, and I know that there's a lot of online discussion about, kind of Whedon's take on Loki versus, what he was in Thor. I don't love kind of how just immediately almost over the top evil he is. I mean, he's just he has a brutality to him that wasn't what it's like this version of Thor. I mean, this version of Loki is different than the version we had at the end of Thor. And obviously, he's been through some stuff. There's some stuff that's happened off screen, which is fine.
A lot of people like to make this thing where, he's under the influence of the staff from Thanos. That's kind of like, they even mention that in one of the Loki shows, I think. I actually hate that.
No, I've never thought that.
I get why people say that he's different from the one that we know. But at the same time, I feel like that's not as true as people give it credit for. In Thor, we see him literally like brutally murder his own birth father, right? And he feels abandoned by his whole family, overshown by his brother. He obviously had some sort of crazy space journey in which he ran into Thanos, got entrusted with this mission that his life depends on because Thanos is terrifying. And look at him. He looks
he's like
he
wet.
looks emaciated. Yeah. He looks exhausted. This is a desperate guy who for the first time is allowed to operate by any of his own whims. And it has gotten him into trouble, and he is also it's like a teenager allowed freedom for the first time, and he's getting into trouble. He is indulging in his brutality, but at a god level.
And I don't think he's a different character. I remember even in the theaters thinking like, wow, dude is just like, maybe, it was, I mean, this opening where it was the death of Coulson, which I know is supposed to be really brutal, and then the where he walks into the ball or whatever and gets the eye scan.
The eye thing, yeah.
It was just very, very brutal. Anyways, what was I gonna say? I totally lost my train of thought. The I I never thought it was the staff, and I do think that he's very effective. His performance is amazing. But
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I was gonna say
Some-
he obviously just he doesn't see any value in humanity. He doesn't value human life in the least, obviously, which is I guess
Watch this
that
scene
makes
right
sense.
here really fast. Look at how Jeremy Renner moves when he fires the gun. See the way he like turns like that?
Yeah.
He's firing exactly from the side. He's firing a gun like he's firing a bow. Like he goes complete profile side.
Yeah.
And fires with his left hand and all this stuff. And I thought that was a really cool detail that Jeremy Renner supposedly like did himself.
Hmm.
I just thought it was really cool.
Well, everything I've
I-
always read that he really gets into. I mean, he takes his
Right.
he's a very physical performer.
A lot of people didn't care for the Hawkeye show. I loved it. I thought it was great. I love Jeremy Renner as Hawkeye.
Yeah.
After his injuries, I don't know if he'll ever come back to it, but I hope we see him again.
Yeah, I'm not sure we'll ever see a full blown like action show from him again, but I would be shocked if we never saw him in the MCU again. I because he's always talked about how much he loves that, the character and everything he did. And no, as far as the Hawkeye show goes, I'm totally with you. I think it's probably in the top 3 MCU MCU shows on Disney Plus, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
But good.
This is one of those things where, I feel like for as long as this movie is and as densely packed as this movie is, this whole action sequence is entirely unnecessary. I think that it's kind of dull. I get that they need something to have a bit of a punch here at the beginning, but what a waste of time. I know it's terrible, but so many people put in really hard work into that, of course.
Yeah,
But, man, I don't like it. And
Well, I mean,
it's supposed to...
go ahead. No, you go. Keep going.
One of the things I was going to get into a little bit later is that this movie has an absolute sin of writing in terms of like story and screen that just bugs the crap out of me, and I will never forgive it. I will never forgive Joss Whedon. But supposedly, Hawkeye shooting Fury in the chest is supposed to be foreshadowing that people under the control of the staff can still act independently to an extent. Their will can still work, because otherwise he should have just shot him in the head to eliminate the threat. But no, he's showing his independence by not killing anybody with his gunshots. I'm like,
No,
that's stupid.
I think that's definitely a kind of a Monday morning quarterback writing type situation where somebody's trying to make something work when it's just like, no, it just was dramatic, and it's just one of those movie things where he shot him in the chest, and the bulletproof vest. That is a time-honored tradition of storytelling with guns.
It is clearly stated in a deleted scene that's not in the movie.
Oh, really?
Literally, it's a conversation between Hawkeye and Selvig, as they're both under the influence of the staff, and they know they're under the influence of the staff. And
I mean, so in a deleted scene, it confirms that they do still have some exercise of their own will. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Oh.
Well, then
why not?
And
well, then why not include it? Because is that also the explanation for why Selvig would have built in like a solution that gets used at the end?
Fail-safe. Yes, exactly. Which comes out of nowhere and is just a Deus Ex Machina, just like in Joss Whedon's previous movie Serenity, when Malcolm Reynolds magically has a wounded nerve cluster that is never stated previously in the movie, but it saves him from the lower back Vulcan neck pinch of Chitwell Ejiofor. And it's just, I'll never be okay with it. It is literally a Deus Ex Machina. It is one of the greatest writing sins, and this movie's climax depends on it. Rant over.
That's all right. I did think this was a fun and effective introduction, like reintroduction to Black Widow for people who didn't see Iron Man 2. It's a good mixture of, it's funny. It also showcases, some of her signature, leg twisty action moves.
Yes,
what do
I
you
agree.
think?
I've never liked it.
Really?
I don't hate it, but even sitting in the theater the first time, which the first time I saw this was actually when I was living in England, and it went under the name Avengers Assemble, because there was that British TV show, The Avengers, from the 1970s. That was
that's
such
right.
a big deal over there that they didn't want any confusion. And I remember sitting in the theater, which they also played an ad that utterly ruined Toy Story for me, probably for the rest of my life. But, like, watching this scene, I'm like, this is so Joss Whedon. And, you know, it's fine. It gets the point across.
I think this is one of those. This was the first I got I'm working. These guys are giving me everything. I actually laughed out loud in the theaters at that, and so to me that was just like, all right, it was effective to me.
The thing that I find really effective about this scene is establishing like her duplicitous nature and her relationship with Barton.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people thought was going to be romantic after this scene, and of course the second one really clears that up.
Yeah. It's just a very close professional relationship, but very professional.
Battle buddies.
Yeah.
Best friends, you know? She even refers to him as best friend in Age of Ultron.
Yeah.
Like, if it wasn't for you, my best friend would have been would have just been a cherished memory, or something like that.
Yeah.
That has that scene though of the headbutt. That is one of the worst stunt headbutts ever.
Oh, because her yeah. But to say it's very obvious there was no contact made at all.
This was actually done by a really talented stunt woman. I can't remember her name, but she has
move
been
is
in a
legit impressive.
Yeah.
That like that kick to her hands, then back up. I mean, although I feel for this guy's leg every time I watch this. Ooh.
Oh yeah.
That would. That stretched the spine out a little bit.
Yeah, you know, I mean, at his age, maybe it'd be good for him.
I do find it odd.
Okay, so did you see that scene
Colton
right there?
Was like sitting there, like, is that actually footage from the end of the movie?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, but I also find it odd that like Coulson's like, what is he like watching like home video of like them fight together while he's talking to her about him? Like, I mean, right.
If he has to get like familiar with Barton's skills or something, because now he's rogue, maybe he's reviewing some combat footage of him.
It's just
that's how I'd write it.
Yeah, I mean maybe, but like, I have to imagine that Coulson is very familiar with these agents.
But I mean, maybe it's like IMDb, where when you pull up their profile, it just automatically starts playing videos of them hanging out.
So here we have the the introduction of Mark Ruffalo, which I remember at the time. I was kind of indifferent on Incredible Hulk back when it was all current, but I always liked Edward Norton and Mark Ruffalo. I didn't really care either way. I was just like, all right, he's we'll see. But what were and do you remember at the time, like, what your thoughts were about the recast and all this?
I've never liked Mark Ruffalo as an actor. He's fine. I think that he does bring a good timidity to it. I've always found something about his voice and demeanor a little strange. Somebody recently said, currently he's in a film that is in theaters time of recording called Mickey 17. Where he plays a character that is like an evil industrialist, very much that he bases after Donald Trump. Because he's very vocal about his criticisms of the government, particularly its leadership. And he based this evil industrialist very obviously after Donald Trump. And somebody said that, well, that works because he just sounds like Donald Trump on Valium. And now I can't unhear it.
Mm. See, yeah, I mean, it's funny because there was one random Mark Ruffalo movie before this, and I think it was like a rom-com he did with Reese Witherspoon.
13 going on 30 with Jennifer Garner?
Was that him? No, this is one where he was like a ghost or something, or no, because that wasn't Reese Witherspoon. That was Jennifer
That was
Garner.
Patrick Swayze.
Yeah, no, there was something else. Anyways, there was a scene where I think Reese Witherspoon was dead or something, and they were like, he saw her. I regularly remember it. There was
that sounds really familiar now that you're saying it.
He was like a gardener, and she was like convincing him to get his passions back. Anyways, there is a physical comedy scene where he's trying to take a drink, and she is like as a ghost, like stopping him, and it's this like very over the top, very Three Stooges esque physical comedy sequence that it had me rolling when I saw it. It was very funny, and he really hit that physical comedy, and that was like my only like positive memory of like, oh, he has he can be funny when he wants to. But other than him doing perfectly fine as Hulk, I have very little opinion on him. I know a lot of the movie film choices he's made post MCU and kind of during the end of the MCU, I've just been like on, or been like, that's a weird movie. Like Poor Things was just like, really, the movie's the movie is disturbed.
Anyways. that movie is perverse.
Yeah,
like,
and then
talk about pedophilia.
Yeah. Anyways, I was indifferent, but I feel like he's perfectly serviceable in these.
Yeah, I think he's fine. I think that if there was any member of the Avengers that could easily be recast, it would actually be him. Mostly because people just are expecting it almost.
Well, and he doesn't put a signature on it, I feel like. There's just, his kind of calm, I'm smart, but I'm chill, if that makes sense. But with a little bit of nervousness every now and then. But like this whole introduction that he kind of, it's a good introduction. It's interesting too that she looks nervous all of a sudden, that he kind of plays her a tiny bit there just to like show her hand. I thought that was good. It shows right away that he's not an idiot. Because he does have, and I will say this, Mark Ruffalo and Robert Downey Jr. I do think have chemistry, like just as actors.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not saying he's a bad choice at all. I found him unremarkable. I felt like anybody could have played that role. So it's not personal. It's not like, oh, I hate his politics or something like that, so I'm going to dislike him. But he's just meh. Yeah. Okay, so one thing I kind of like here. This is the introduction of the World Security Council. We have Powers Booth here, which they added all of this in order to make it so that he has this kind of a top-down antagonism that's not like the president of the United States.
Yeah.
But they have Powers Booth here, and all he had to do was sit at a desk and film in a suit for a little bit. But they have these other two here on the right who actually go on to reappear.
Winter Soldier.
Actually, I think maybe all three of them might reappear.
Well, I recognize the lady for sure because she's the one who Black Widow impersonates at the end. I mean, she's very distinct face.
There's also the Asian gentleman on the left of Powers Booth. I think he might reappear.
No, he did. He was in Winter Soldier also. And I mean, he's actually
no, it wasn't. It was a different Asian guy.
It wasn't? Okay, because I remember the guy in Winter Soldier.
Racist.
I'm sorry, but I remember him in Winter Soldier. Because he's done a lot of work in Asian cinema and Hong Kong cinema.
Oh, yes. He was in The Dark Knight. He was the businessman who he has to extract.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because this is a different actor. This is a gentleman who just kind of does background stuff, apparently.
Okay. So here we have the replaying of the post-credit scene from Cap First Avenger. Although this is extended.
Like
yeah.
Mm. Did you know that this movie was originally written and largely filmed to actually have a singular main character in the form of Steve Rogers?
Really?
Very similar to Malcolm Reynolds in Serenity. They kind of wanted one character to focus on and everybody kind of join around him, but it would be his character arc of being the man out of time, but his unique skills and abilities are what make him special in today's time, are what allow him to blend into today's world adequately.
I think it was part of the reason they didn't go that way is just because Robert Downey Jr. was just, they couldn't backseat him, Cap, or
like he was being played. It was going to be kind of the co-lead thing, but the main arc was going to be his. Mostly it made it too long, and they felt that it backseated characters who were already kind of a backseat. Like, Thor doesn't have anything to do in this movie.
No, he really doesn't.
Like, yeah.
He really does enjoy fighting Hulk, though. It's actually when we get there. I like that little bit of like, that's his moment of like, this is fun. Just Thor. He loves a good fight. But other than that, I mean, other than having a little bit
fighting
of
Hulk.
Oh yeah. Well, Hulk's a
in
legit
the comics. That's
challenge
a thing. because there's never been a decisive winner. Or I mean, there has been in some, but the whole idea is that they're evenly matched.
Yeah.
Thor's awareness and cunning is powerful enough to match Hulk's just unbridled rage.
Get the
And here we have
reintroduction
the
here
Mark
of-
6 suit.
Yep. Now this is still the same suit he was wearing at the end of Iron Man 2, right?
I believe
I mean, it's got the triangle.
it does have the triangle, but yeah, it is. This would be the Mark 6. And because he had the
Because this
The
solves the
original-
the electrical
the prototype. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because it's the improvement that he's always making. Because there was the original, there was the prototype that turns into War Machine. There was the one at the end of the first movie. There was the one at the beginning of the second movie, and then there was
The
this
suitcase
one. So
one.
this is the 6th suit. So this is the Mark 6 because
Yeah.
the one that he gets at the end here
Is Mark 7.
where they return to the round one is the Mark 7.
Yeah. Because the suitcase was that Mark 5? No, that would have been Mark 4, right?
Yeah. I was like, I know that I'm only saying 5, but I know that there's another one because he has 2 different suits at the beginning of 2.
Yeah.
This is actually like one of the last times we see him going through one of these rigs.
I miss these
because
like suit up scenes. Just
Mhm.
although
Yeah.
I do think that the chest tap at the beginning of Infinity War when the Thanos' guys show up is definitely cool. The first time you see the nanotech, and
It is cool.
the other the one other kind of suit up scene is where in Winter Soldier when he does the finger
Mhm.
into his helicopter thing. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, I like that one. The Gwyneth Paltrow actually forgot she was in this movie. She was on this like cooking show. They were talking to her, and she's like, you were in the Avengers. She's like, was I in that one? Like she couldn't remember the Avengers or Spider-Man: Homecoming. I think it was
I mean, she probably filmed what 2 days, maybe.
Max. I think. But yeah,
This is a good scene, though. I will say, like, the dialogue here is fun. This is very kind of classic Tony Stark, just stepping in it with her, but at the same time they love each other, and there's and especially when Coulson comes in, he is such a fun little addition to their chemistry.
He really is. Like they didn't plan on Clark Gregg being that big of a deal in the MCU at all. He was just supposed to be Agent Man who was actually going to die. But they liked him. They liked his chemistry.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so I love the two, like the Easter egg there of Life Model Decoy. That's the first time it's mentioned in the MCU, right?
It is, and they do later bring in the LMD program as a major plot point. That's very tense, actually, very kind of thing-ish almost.
Yeah.
In Agents of Shield.
But that and like you said, I love Tony's line there. His first name is Agent. The whole
so good.
It's just a great line, and especially that his name is Phil. Just like it's such a great, like, just generic, kind of forgettable name, and you would never think of it as somebody who's capable. Yet he's so capable. Coulson is just he does the unassuming. Yet I love the the little short they did with him. It was a strange thing happened with Thor's hammer. His little action short.
Yeah.
Anyways,
no. The whole thing here is just great for the character in general.
Oh yeah. 12% of a moment. I just did.
What I was trying to say though, because I was just like, dang, I had something I was saying and I couldn't remember what it was. The thing that makes this movie work is the character chemistry.
Yeah.
Because the plot is not super good when you're rewatching it, and the actual, like, some of the visual effects aren't great. Even for the time, they were a little wonky. So there's certain moments that just don't work for me. The one between Black Widow and Loki later in the film especially really doesn't work for me. The Mewling Quim scene, as it's often known as. But things, especially with Robert Downey Jr. and just his chemistry with everybody on the cast, is really good.
Yeah.
And it's Joss Whedon's quippy writing, because this is the dawn of the quip.
Yeah, this movie is definitely part of it. And,
Mhm.
you know, the style that Joss Whedon writes in, he needs the right kind of actor who can deliver his dialogue. And Robert Downey Jr. is one of those kind of actors who can just, nail that kind of stuff. It's a lot of it's about timing and kind of the right tone. And yeah, it's this movie. They had already done the work. They had cast these roles for the most part so well, and just getting them all together. I mean, if you have the right actors, honestly, just getting them together, you're halfway there to success. But then
Mhm.
the very thin plot is entirely saved by the anytime you put them all in a room and have them talking. It 99% of the time in this movie, it's really good.
Oh yeah, it's great. I really like
I love
this.
this. I watched it. Sorry.
The little subtle fanboying, awkward
Yeah.
Steve.
I watched
I
it
love
while you
how
were
he
sleeping.
looks.
Even his
I
pants look like they were made in the 40s. It's just
mm-hmm.
yeah.
That's it.
They
He looks
remind
like,
me of what Doc Brown was wearing in Back to the Future.
oh my gosh, yeah, those weird pants from the school scene.
Yeah, those like odd like flannel.
I've never looked at his
Flannel
pants in the thing.
and kind of like, yeah, they look like almost like wool, like the texture of them.
Mhm.
But no,
Yeah.
I mean, you get kind of the iconic Steve look. He still looks, his hair looks very much like it did in First Avenger still, but he's got his leather jacket. The
It's
end
a
of this
wig.
movie, you get his first shot of him on a Harley, which Cap looks good on a Harley.
Oh, really good. They even had to go back and digitally add his hair waving because everybody could tell that he was just sitting on a motorcycle on a green screen.
Yeah.
There's no wind.
Okay, so this scene kind of introduces again the idea that like Loki's not. I mean, they did it in the intro, but like that he's not on his own here. And here's the introduction of Alexis Denisov. I can't pronounce his name. You go for it.
I mean, Alexei Denisov had already appeared, but
Yeah.
this is the first time you're really seeing his face. You're getting his weird double hands. And I'm sitting here going, this is the villain that they're choosing? I don't know who this guy is. I was going, are they going really obscure? And then when they had that, I'm like, ooh, there's somebody bigger. I thought it was going to be Red Skull.
Well,
I thought...
I was going to say, I did appreciate that they two or three times in this film, they kind of linger on the stairs going up somewhere, and just that little bit of like, no, there's something else. There's somebody up those stairs. And obviously
I thought
here,
it was going to be Red Skull.
yeah. There's some, the floating stairs in space, that's effective. Looks like a video game level for sure. I think I've explored these rocks in Destiny.
I was going to say, this is some planet you can explore on Mass Effect 1.
Yep. Okay,
Look in the background and there's a Mako bouncing.
Is there... That's amazing. Is there any way that Joss Whedon planned on Loki's scepter being an Infinity Stone?
Not a chance in hell.
That was 100% retro done, right? Because, one,
had to be.
There's no way Thanos would have just handed Loki an Infinity Stone. There's no way. And
I agree.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. And it was one of those, you could tell they went back and they were like, all right, we got to figure out where to put Infinity Stones in these movies we've already made. We got to just find spots to insert them. Because the Tesseract, I do not believe the Tesseract was originally going to be an Infinity Stone either.
No, it wasn't, because the thing is, the Cosmic Cube
that's a thing,
was
right?
Essentially, it is, and it is related to the Infinity Stones, okay? The Cosmic Cube was what the Gauntlet held, okay? You could wield the Cosmic Cube with a full Infinity Gauntlet, okay? So I think that they were like, yeah, we've totally got to set these things up. We can use Thor Dark World. We can use Guardians of the Galaxy. But then they're just like, but what do we do about this stone or this stone? And they're just like, well, let's see what we can do.
Because I'm wondering, did Joss, was he the one that wrote the scepter into an Infinity Stone for Age of Ultron, or was that somebody else?
No idea. No idea. I wish I had that information, but I do not.
So, one thing I will praise this movie on, I freaking love the helicarrier design. I like that it still looks grounded. That right now they're probably filming on a real aircraft carrier, or maybe they're filming on a set with a green screen. I honestly don't know. But
I would imagine that they're probably on a military base with a solid tarmac.
yeah, that's
And
true.
not
It
natural
wouldn't.
aircraft
Well,
carrier.
it could have been on a carrier docked. I know that Hollywood's done that before. But yeah, they're not out at sea, obviously. But I love. I love the Quinjet. I think the in this movie, the way that it moves and kind of the like the head like kind of pivots, the way the wings work, that it kind of comes in like a helicopter. But I just it looks very
Look-
like it would work somehow.
Well, it's pretty much based on just your standard VTOL.
Yeah.
It's just they internalize the
Like,
rotors.
Yeah, but I mean they dressed it up in a way that it nails that future tech really well, that you could imagine in 10, 20 years this thing could really exist.
And it looks right out of the comics too. Like fantastic.
There would be some
Uh,
kind of like, I'm just saying, for them to get like sucked into that
Massive
thing.
suction that would have drawn them right in.
Yeah. This, I mean, I remember in theaters, this was like, oh crap, this looks
This was
good.
cool.
This looks good. The water
Well-
coming out and everything. I mean, this effect I think holds up.
Oh yeah. Well, I didn't realize that they were going this far. I remember in the movie, I'm just like, in the theater, just like, oh, they're going all out here. Hell yeah. So one of the things that was pointed out to me, and that I can tell in scenes like this,
This
is that
actor
somebody
right
was
here,
mentioning-
this dude
Mhm.
that was just talking, he's like
Yeah,
done stuff, isn't he? Sorry, totally interrupted you.
yeah. Well, he's the guy who's playing Galaga. But
Yeah,
no,
like,
he
but-
has done other things.
Yeah, he's one of those
couldn't
actors
tell
that's
you
been a
what
lot
it
of like
is,
he's
though.
done like some TV stuff or something. He's like somewhat well known.
Yeah.
Anyways, go ahead.
I was just saying the lighting is not great in this movie.
Well,
um,
it's very flat right here. Like there's nothing
It's
dynamic
it's flat
happening.
throughout the entire movie. It's filmed like a TV show.
Hmm.
It's filmed. There's certain scenes that look almost like a soap opera.
Interesting.
I had always thought there was something strange about certain scenes, but I couldn't put my finger on it. And then this one guy I watched on YouTube who was doing analysis of lighting is just like, this movie is lit like a TV show. And like that's not to its benefit.
Well,
Like a little
it-
$10 thing.
Yeah, it's fun. Excuse me. I also appreciate that Fury does get some moments in this movie. You know,
Mhm.
he gets the opening is, despite its issues, he gets some stuff to do in the opening. I like that he gets some good interaction with everybody, that he's not left to the side. When the whole big lab scene happens later in the movie that he's in there, he's got a few good laughs. I'd love it when the engines go down and he's like, "Is the sun out?" Just that kind of stuff. He runs out and he's got some stuff to do. I appreciate that he's not relegated to just a total background character in this movie.
Yeah. He's great.
Well, I mean,
And
you
he
Sam Jackson.
feels like one of the Avengers,
Yeah,
He feels like the seventh Avenger.
Selvig, they do a good job throughout this movie where he looks rough by the end of this movie. He looks like he's just, just tired and like he hasn't showered in a long time. He looks like a guy who's been under mind control, working like a mind controlled slave for days and days.
He looks kind of like Loki does
Yeah.
by the end of it, Like, you can see Loki getting a bit more here. One of the things that people were saying is that, like, he comes out of the Tesseract and he looks like Selvig does now. And you kind of... And it's like, oh, maybe he was under the control of the Scepter, and then they realized that he could actually be, like, really loyal, but control isn't actually great for him type of thing, so they let him out, and he's, like, recovering from it, and you see him getting back into his more pristine state, and then as you see all these others under the control of the Scepter becoming more, like, grody and working themselves to death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there's Agent, what's his face?
Sitwell.
Sitwell. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
He appeared in so much.
Yeah. So from this moment on, like very little time goes by, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what is
Like,
it?
we're talking-
Like 2 days, maybe 3 days?
Not even that. I swear that it takes place over the next, like, 14 hours. Like, I can't say that for certain.
Because they pick up Loki here. We have the fight in the park, the fight on the helicarrier, and then we're in New York. Like I think
Mhm.
New York might be the next day.
Yeah, I think it is, if that long. Here we have the first look at the new costume, which is easily Captain America's worst costume in the entire series.
Yeah.
Like, easily.
Yeah, we were talking about this a little bit before we started recording, and it's I don't hate it as much as some people on the internet do, because I get that they were going for the kind of how do you make the old comic outfit look, but it's definitely the worst. I don't disagree with that at all. I feel like all they had to do was make the blue a little bit darker and richer, and it would have helped immensely.
I think that they also should have allowed different shades of blue.
Yeah.
I have recently painted a model of this Captain America. I'm actually currently working on a project of painting all 6 of the original Avengers in that pose, the famous climactic circle pose. And I hate that costume. It's just the same blue. It doesn't have a dynamism to it. In fact, I would say that this movie has kind of the worst costumes for all of them. Black Widow's is bland. Hawkeye's is bland. Thor's is okay.
Well, Thor's
but if you're like looking at,
how much of it is even different? Isn't it basically just exactly what he was?
it's actually quite different if you really look at the details.
Okay.
He like in this he has no gold on him. They didn't want to mix. They wanted him to stand out because they didn't want him to look like red, white, and blue. They didn't want him to look like Iron Man colors with red and gold. So they go for like a dark blue, silver, and red. Almost like black, silver, and red more than anything.
Okay.
But they also take off his sleeves, so
Yeah.
he just has like gauntlets and things like that. But also like his lower body. You're not really looking at his pants and boots and such, I suppose, but it's still just bland. Like,
well, I mean,
this whole scene is one of my complaints. This doesn't make sense to me. Is it just him on a power trip?
like, is he just distracted here? Did he just?
Yeah.
Did he kind of go off script
the
here?
The introduction of Captain America is just stupid. I hate the way that it's done. I think that they're using it to establish Loki's narcissism, Loki's like Machiavellian.
Well, I think
what's the word I'm looking for?
Well, he's theatric. He's theatrical,
and his powers.
But yeah, his powers of deception and stuff. But I think they later when they talk about him being a diva, and that's how Tony's like, oh no, he went to my tower. Of course he did. That's where
Yeah.
I mean, I think that Joss does try to do that in most of his stories, where he tries to not have things come out of nowhere, despite the fact that he's also very guilty of making solutions come out of nowhere.
Things coming out of nowhere.
Yeah. But for character stuff, I put it this way: he doesn't have character stuff come out of nowhere. Usually, he usually will set that up pretty well. And I do like this guy. I do think when Cap comes down, the fight, the very brief fight he has with Loki, is kind of just bland.
I'm okay with bland. That's what I'm not okay with. He's just like, where did he come from?
Oh yeah, because
was he just like hiding behind
a
bush? Was he just like hiding behind a bush, like waiting? Oh, it looks like he's gonna kill. Like, I better intervene now.
I've actually never thought about that, because the Quinjet doesn't show up for a second here. So yeah,
no,
and he
not.
just like kind of fell out of the sky.
Freaking stupid. Bing, bong. Like, seeing these two go a little toe to toe is kind of cool. This leads to one of the best cameos in the MCU, of course, with Chris Evans appearing in Thor: Dark World.
Yes. I don't know. It's just
I hate, even when I first saw it, I hated that Not Today. Keep going.
No, it's just yeah. I do like. I mean, Iron Man is kind of fun here to like override the PA. It's very, because Tony's also very theatrical and very egotistical, obviously. I do like the when he lands the bricks, the tiny moment, the tiny detail of the bricks around his feet. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I don't know the Reindeer Games reference.
Oh,
I never saw it.
Yeah, it's a
Is
very
it the antlers?
it's a mediocre, it's a mediocre 90s action film with Ben Affleck.
What are you saying?
No, that's it. No, I was just saying, I mean, I think this, for the most part, I like Iron Man. I mean, I think this suit looks fine. The Mark 7 looks better because I don't like the triangle. If you literally just took the triangle out, I wouldn't mind this one. Although the solid gold legs are definitely. Did he do the solid gold legs again ever?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad because it would make painting his model for my current project really dull. So
that show. Sorry, because of Endgame, whenever that shot comes up, I can't help but to stare at Chris Evans' ass.
that is America's
It's
ass.
America's ass.
So there's a thing. It's the first part of it was notable just now, but it pops up more later in the movie that bothers me about this movie, which is Joss Whedon's obsession with little lights. Iron Man has like an underglow whenever he suits up. When he puts on his helmet, you'll see that it's glowing
right
on the
there.
inside of his helmet. Right there.
Yeah,
it's throughout
blue.
the whole movie. It doesn't pop up anywhere else in the series. And it looks bad and it looks cheap. It looks like something from, no offense to them because they do great work in other ways, CW show, you know?
Mm.
I don't like it. What do you think of the introduction? What do you think of how they handle Thor in here in his introduction?
I think that they didn't have any good way to bring him in, honestly. I do think from a writing point of view, unless you want to, I mean, they have the tiny line here with Loki about, the Bifrost destroyed, must have used a lot of magic to get you here. I totally understand the idea that if Loki is active on Earth, Thor's, he with Heimdall, he's been watching Earth, he's been keeping an eye on Jane. And so he would have, Heimdall would have let Thor know immediately, hey, Loki's on Earth. And so I totally buy that. I just think other than having him just appear at some point, I don't think there's any way they get around that, honestly, from where they left the story. Unless they wanted a bunch of exposition about, we fixed the Bifrost, they fixed the Bifrost, and it's a whole thing.
Cool detail here.
Yeah.
Cool detail.
I mean, I appreciate it. Yeah. So, I mean, him appearing like on top of the jet and that whole thing. I mean, it's a, if you're going to just have him appear, have him come in at a cool time where it's dynamic and it looks, I mean, the shot of him landing on the Quinjet, the lightning, I mean, it looks good. It's fine. The way they write him in here, I feel like they kind of didn't have a choice but to have him just show up.
This does feel like Thor's weakest. Not like he's like the strongest, but I feel like this is Chris Hemsworth's weakest appearance. It's his least memorable. It's his least fun. Even, and that's saying something because he was quite forgettable in Dark World, unfortunately. Like, other characters were more memorable in Thor Dark World.
Yeah. Well, as much as I have issues with Taika Waititi's comedic sensibilities, he does, I think, bring a lot of good out of Chris Hemsworth as a performer. And I think the Russo brothers also bring a lot out of Chris. I think that Chris Hemsworth has, with the right director, he shines a lot more.
Odin's Ravens. I like the addition of Odin's Ravens. It's like, Odin's watching them and stuff like that. Like, this is useful conversation, though. It helps connect the two movies. It shows Thor being insistent and he loves his brother. But it also adds more to this mystique of there is a benefactor.
Yeah.
And also that Loki can't do anything. He's stuck. There's that moment where you're almost like, he almost wants to stop, but he can't.
This is also the one spot where Loki is kind of talking more in the style of Thor, a little more just like this the syntax. Is that the right way to put it?
I sent it off. I know not where.
Yeah, a little more Shakespearean. Yeah, and he doesn't. It's the like that conversation is like the one time he does that. I feel like it took a while for Iron Man to catch him. By the way, like they had a long conversation before Iron Man finally got caught up with him.
Maybe they're hard to track.
Yeah.
But also, later in the movie, in the fight between Loki and Thor on top of Stark Tower, they have a moment in there that they actually like retcon in to Loki season 2, and I actually think it does add to the movie. Weirdly enough,
I like the idea of like, okay, sorry. Do you think Loki would have stayed to just watch this, or do you think he would have taken the opportunity to get the heck out?
well, remember later in the movie, it was his plan all along to get caught.
Oh, to get caught. Wait, yeah. Every now and then,
Mm-hmm.
dang it, I shouldn't have asked that question out loud.
Well, that was the thing to do. Like
Get caught on
Han
purpose.
in Into Darkness, Joker in Dark Knight. Like the villain wants to be caught. You know.
So
you see the
go ahead.
You see the damage to his suit and the power at 400% capacity and all the problems there. And I like that they use that later in the movies so that Thor actually can feed him power in order for him to amplify and direct it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That shot of them going up the cliff face, I think was one of those. I think it was a bad special effects shot.
Yeah,
like
I thought you were about to say it was great, and I'm like, Brian, really?
No, Thor, he looks like a rubber man all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Okay, how much Thor? Obviously, I mean, it makes perfect sense. Thor's doesn't want to kill Tony because I do feel like if Thor had wanted to kill Tony, this fight would have been over almost immediately. There's no way that Thor is not holding back here like hard.
I agree. One of the things was pointed out to me because I had a similar complaint. Is that he doesn't know what he's dealing with. When he was on Earth, he wasn't on Earth long enough to really know what was going on. He didn't know what kind of technology was out there from the humans.
Yeah.
So this is his he didn't know that humanity has this level of advancement.
Well, the reason why I say it has to be holding back a little bit because when he threw Mjolnir at Tony at the beginning of that fight, if he had thrown at full I'm gonna take you out, I don't care what what Iron Man's suit's made out of. He's dead.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So I think that he was definitely holding back.
But I mean, it makes sense because I mean, Thor, he cares about humans. He would have, he. It's been established already. Thor doesn't want to kill any humans. So I mean, it doesn't bother me. It's just one of those. It's interesting because Thor comes across as a little bit clunky a few times in that fight. Like he's not really sure. Or like I said, he's trying to kind of not kill Tony, but he doesn't mind messing him up a little bit maybe to make a point. He's getting aggravated as the fight goes on. He's just getting
yeah.
Although he
does have that moment when he's just like, I'm just gonna hit you with the hammer.
Well, and I love the idea that Thor has no problem headbutting somebody with a metal helmet on because Thor is just that strong.
Yeah, Thor headbutts a lot actually.
Yeah. But I also liked, it's really fast. I know we got to get to this, but the hammer hit on Cap's shield. I remember talking with somebody who's like, well, why wouldn't that just flatten Cap, and explaining, well, no, vibranium. That's why the shield is so good because energy, it doesn't transfer the energy down to Cap. That's why Cap can take pretty much any hit on that shield and not, just get turned into a pancake. Because it's the principle of the metal, and that's what makes the shield so special. It's not just that it's tough; it's that literally vibrations don't get transferred through it. So I just always thought that was cool in a way that if you're paying attention, that tells you a lot about Captain Shield, even if you missed the first film.
And it also ties into a pretty funny moment, a moment that I think worked pretty well in Age of Ultron, where they actually use it offensively against Hydra at the beginning.
Yeah, where they do the shockwave off of. Yeah, that when we get to Age of Ultron, that whole opening fight, I actually think is pretty darn good. That opening action sequence in the forest.
Weirdly enough, the problem with that whole thing is actually just the dialogue.
Yeah. Low. Okay, so here we go. Go ahead and talk about this. What's happening right now?
Well, which part of it?
Well, so I mean, bringing Loki in, I do think that this interaction between, Fury and Loki, because they're, Fury's a force. He's a very intelligent man.
Furious.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. He's, in a way, just as much as Black Widow, he is somebody who understands the game at a very deep level, right? And so I find
deeper than Black Widow ever will.
Oh yeah. And also too, just as actors, I think they have a great. This is like the only time we ever get to see them interact, and I like it a lot.
Yeah,
I love that last line. It's a magazine or something.
No, I really like that because it's showing up until now, because Fury has appeared several times, and he always seems to have an answer. He always seems to have kind of an in, and this is the first time when you realize that he is terrified.
I feel like half of this conversation was in trailers. This part, the whole, it did get a laugh from me. The whole, be careful how you speak of him, and then he's killed all these people. He's adopted.
Yeah,
I do appreciate that they did not dye Chris Hemsworth's eyebrows and beard in this movie.
Right?
He definitely looks better because of it. I hate Cap's gloves. They're too bulky.
I agree.
A bag of cats. He's adopted.
People. Like I was sitting there going, "Oh dang, that's a."
I mean, I have to imagine they included everybody who was crushed at the Shield base.
Yeah. I love the little thing. This is the last time that it's mentioned here. It is covered in an episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But that Coulson is like, he was dating a cellist who moved to Portland for work. And he's just like, literally, he's sitting there going, I'll fly you out to Portland. Keep love alive.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I really like that. It just, it adds this thing. If you're able to follow that quick dialogue, I think it adds something really well. It makes Coulson even more easily to be missed.
Yeah. I appreciate, one, you're getting plot stuff here from Tony, but the way that he's moving around and kind of talking, it makes it much more believable that Hill would not have noticed him plant the little bug. Because, just the way that he took his time, he was sitting there just poking at things, and they're like, all right, it's Stark, whatever. It actually, again, it's as much as Joss Whedon doesn't always do this, it makes the information later not come out of nowhere.
Yeah, agreed. I love the whole, like, he turns, and he's moving around
sounds
with
exhausting.
Yeah, but he also covers his eye, and is, like, moving around.
Yeah, and he's trying to picture trailer shot again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everything about this introduction with him, all the chemistry that he establishes between essentially all of them by himself, just so good. It's
flying monkeys. Like the one joke that like Cap gets in this movie, just like I understood that reference.
And it's lived. Oh god, it's still a meme out there.
Back to Galaga.
In the ethos.
Oh my goodness.
I didn't actually know what Galaga was, to be honest.
Just an old Atari game. But so they randomly have the carrier be cloaked and not cloaked, depending on the exterior shot.
I mean, it probably saves power to not have it cloaked at night.
Yeah, probably. I mean, well, no,
cloaking
night
is probably a very expensive system.
Yeah, no, but night's when it's the most visible. It'd be way easier to just go up on the cloud cover or be high up. I mean, you'd vanish during the day. Nights when you want it cloaked.
That's logic.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Kind of broke Harlem. I do enjoy that they at least acknowledge Incredible Hulk happened.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they had a straight up scene from it earlier. Teresa. This whole scene is so good and so necessary because one of the things that they needed to do here is really establish the relationships between the characters, Yeah. In order to make this movie work. And the council room scene here and this one are just like fantastic. Perfect.
Well, this is also a way to
the plot forward. It's not just them hanging out.
Yeah. You're right. This is where the dialogue here is really good. I mean, all the the actors are doing a good job. It's fun. I appreciate they're doing things. Mark Ruffalo's poking at something over there. The eating blueberries. Cap's the one guy who's just standing there very stoically, which makes sense for a soldier. But you're right. I'm looking at this now. I'm looking at lighting now in a way I have not looked in this movie before. And you're right. This thing is shot like a cheap sitcom. Everything is just. It looks like just the whole ceiling is just nothing but fluorescent light bulbs on everything.
Do you know the legend of the blueberries here?
No.
Supposedly, food was banned from the set, and Robert Downey Jr. kept sneaking stuff in and hiding it because he just always had like the munchies, not like marijuana munchies, but just in general munchies. Maybe marijuana munchies. I don't know. Whatever. But he just was always eating, and so he would sneak these things on set and just eat them during filming, and they couldn't really stop him. And he decided to incorporate it that every single time he gets Banner to agree with him or question authority, he feeds him. Like he's trying to Pavlov him.
Okay. See, the texture, yeah, here, I'm looking at Cap's suit, and they have enough pieces, like the different, like the seams, and there is a texture to it. You're right. If they had just mixed up the shades of blue, they already had all the opportunity with the different pieces on it. It could have made it look better. You're right.
I very much agree. I genuinely don't understand what they were going for when they designed this costume. It's just, I wonder if it just, I mean, they would have gone through the steps of checking how it appeared on camera, right?
Well, they would have done many screen tests on a film like this.
And then they're sitting here with the zipper going right down the middle of the front white stripe.
Yeah.
And so it's just like,
and they left it silver too.
That,
they could have at least even made it white. Oh, you could have anodized that thing. Because what's funny is from the back, it's more obvious that it's like a two-piece. Like it doesn't look as because from the front it kind of looks like a unitard. But on the back, you see like the break right at its waist, where it's like kind of a jacket on top of. It looks. I mean, butt jokes aside, it looks better from the back in my mind. But it's not great. I'm not saying it's great. And like I said, I don't like that his gauntlets. They remind me of the overdone ones from like the Arkham games. Batman's costume in those games. Just the massive like forearm. What do you call those? There's a specific name in medieval times for those though.
Bracer.
Like he's got bracers.
I was gonna say gauntlet's the word, bro.
No, I was thinking more like old timey.
Yeah. I like this lead up.
The CG reflection
for Hulk.
The CG reflection of Tony Stark looks awful.
Is it CG?
Oh, it's CG.
I'd never even noticed it, to be honest.
It looks it doesn't look like a real reflection.
I love the description that he gives of Hulk. It really helps establish for people who didn't see the Incredible Hulk or just didn't really know kind of what you're dealing with. And I don't know, I really love that scene. You're like, he doesn't suit up. It's like a nerve,
Yeah. Oh, it is. That's a good description. I feel like Cap's walking with like his arms really wide fairly often in this film. Just
because of the costume.
Yeah.
That was one of his big issues with the other costumes, is that he could never put his arms down much. His lats would always be kind of sticking out. It was padded in a funny way. We were talking before the podcast, and we are talking about Captain America costumes and how the Winter Soldier costumes look really good. And he even wanted to go back to the classic one from the first movie. He just wanted them made more comfortable, which they were able to do. But in the meantime, he had this movie, which is not comfortable.
So I wonder in Endgame if they remade this costume using the newer material to make it better for when he wore it in Endgame.
I wonder too. That'd be kind of cool.
I appreciate that they did mention Jane Foster here, because there's no way Thor wouldn't have asked about her and made sure that she was okay.
Yeah, same. And also, I don't think they could afford Natalie Portman.
Yeah, but I'm just glad that they didn't just pretend like she didn't exist, because it would have been really weird for Thor to not ask.
No, the weird one that doesn't appear here, and I get why, but at the same time I feel like it's not a good enough reason in the world, is where's War Machine? Where's Rhodes?
That does, yeah. Well, the fact that the U.S. military doesn't get involved at any point outside of the NYPD, essentially.
Yeah, like, and calling it the National Guard at one point.
Yeah, they mention it, but they don't really ever show it. But like, there's no.
They show it.
Do they show it? Did they show a couple
Yeah,
Humvees show
sure.
up at some point? Okay.
Yep. Yep.
So,
Yep, yep, yep,
but
yep.
yeah, I mean, the fact that they resisted the urge to have a flight of low flying, very out of any kind of practical reality flight of F-22s show up in New York during the battle is, I mean, I kind of applaud them for that because Hollywood freaking loves that plane. The only time that
Oh my god.
actually
Keep
like,
going. I'm gonna rant in a second.
no, I was just gonna say, I mean, they used a version of the 35 to launch the nuke and to shoot Hulk during that fight. But the fact that during that they keep it entirely on the characters, they don't have the U.S. military show up in any significant way of any kind. Go ahead and give us a rant. Give us a good rant.
I hate the low flying airplanes thing, especially fighter jets, low flying fighter jets. They did it in the most recent Captain America. Fantastically well done action sequence that I could not get into because of how stupid it is to have low flying fast attack planes.
Mhm.
I almost said helicopters because fast attack doesn't actually work. I meant fighter jets. And then the worst offender, though, by far and away the worst offender, is Godzilla vs. Kong. Or even Godzilla King of Monsters, which I really like, but Godzilla vs. Kong is a worse movie, so I'm going to call it the worst offender.
I haven't seen it yet, so I'm sure you're right.
Oh god, they took the really grounded, fun, like gravitas of 2014 Godzilla and Godzilla King of Monsters, and they turned it into a freaking like neon video game. It's disgusting.
Okay,
Disgusting.
how do they make Chris Evans' ass look so good and Scarlett Johansson's look so flat and boring?
There is kind of a reason for that. One, the costume on her, if you look, it looks almost like there's kind of chaps that are holding the gun holsters. So I have seen other movies. I happen to know that Scarlett Johansson, she doesn't have like an incredible ass, but she has a nice ass. But there's an entire thing to her costume that's almost chap-like that is hiding the definition. Meanwhile, Chris Evans, it doesn't have that, and it's grabbing everything. And he also is so incredibly fit and toned that you just can't help but go, I'm straight, right?
So this scene, and I want to talk about jets in a minute, but I want to talk about this scene because you mentioned that you didn't like the scene. I was curious what your thoughts were. Please elaborate.
I don't like it. I don't like how she can get the "that's your play" out. Like, it doesn't make sense to me that she's able to get his plan out of this. And the red goes on to be very important in other movies, such as Black Widow and things like that.
I do appreciate that they, from the very beginning, they don't try to act like she's like a hero, that she's got a past, that she's done some crappy things, that she's actively trying to kind of, atone in a way, is like just a big part of her character and her life. I appreciate those as character kind of, character strokes, but it's interesting here to to start the way they're shooting this. You have almost like a monologue happening, and then to start going through the rest of the ship, and they're obviously planting some seeds here of what's going on. But I don't know.
And Dreykov's daughter that was mentioned there ends up being the entire plot of the movie Black Widow.
It's interesting that they have they did it for the audience's benefit here, but it's not like they just have Hydra gear sitting there. Like, it's not like they have their version of it, like Phase 2 stuff. It's just, I think it's just for the audience to be able to recognize, like, oh, that's Hydra stuff.
Well, that's not quite right though. They actually
what it looks like.
mention it. It is.
Yeah.
But they bring it up. It all fits together because one of the things is at the beginning they were talking about evacuating the Phase 2 prototypes, or Phase 2 research, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so essentially, because the Tesseract has reemerged, that stuff doesn't work. But they want to replicate it. So they had it there with the Tesseract ready, and they're like, if this place is going, we need to get that stuff out of there. So they take it here. And so it's in storage, essentially.
Yeah.
And so it does fit as to why the Hydra stuff is there.
Okay.
That is actually a plot thing that works really, really well.
Okay.
In my opinion.
No, that's fine. I don't have like strong feelings about it. I feel like it's one of those things that is more of just, for the benefit of the audience. Thinking at this,
No, Mhm.
I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just like, that was my thought when I saw it, is what I'm saying.
Mm.
Even though what you're saying makes total sense. The I was just thinking about the fact that when this carrier is in the water,
Mm.
this is all like got to be like a cool like sea view through these windows. It's all underwater right here.
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing quite a bit as well.
So
One of
go ahead.
I like this scene because everybody's opinions make sense.
Yeah. No, this
Like,
is a fantastic
yeah.
scene. You get them all into a room, and you're actually asking questions that normal people would ask. I feel like a lot of plots, unfortunately, skip over obvious questions to try to sound, extra intelligent or clever or whatever. And this is like straight up like questions and answers that make sense to most people given, the circumstances. And I appreciate that.
No, very much. This scene, as watching this, I realized that I don't like this movie as much as I thought I did, that I have rated it too highly on my most recent list, and that I think that it and Age of Ultron might actually be just about on the same level, like get the same grade, based on different problems. But this scene, I think, elevates this movie. And notice the camera work. It's now kiltered. I forget the name of that type of shot. But as things get crazier, as people get angrier, the camera angle starts tilting and even going upside down.
Yeah.
So I guess that you could think that maybe that is a good reason why they could lean it into the Mind Stone. So maybe they were planning on that by this time. Like maybe the scepter is having an effect on their minds.
It might be. I mean, I don't hold this against the writers, that they were kind of figuring this out as they go. I mean, that's how. I mean, you know this better than I do. Writing is an organic process that you don't have it all completely perfectly figured out as you go. And even if you think you do, as you write, things shift. And so like, I don't have anything. It's not like, it's not like it's a problem that they didn't have it all mapped out from the very beginning. But it always is just it's more a point of interest than anything else. Because there's also, an art to like looking at what you've already written and thinking, oh, well, this actually makes sense.
There's the famous interaction.
Yep. It's a great. Although I like the take for Tony's line in the trailer, I think is better than the take they used in the film. Because
I never noticed the difference.
Oh, it's a totally different delivery. Yeah, the genius
thing
billionaire.
Happened for me.
Go ahead.
Playboy philanthropist.
Yeah.
Similar thing happened for me in the movie X-Men: Days of Future Past. There's a line in there, "We need you to hope again," said by Patrick Stewart to James McAvoy. So much better in the trailer than the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always weird for me, whatever reason. Whenever we finally get to Star Wars: The Original Trilogy, there's several lines that they took it. George used a different take for the exact same line in the special edition, and it makes me nutty because I think it sounds better in the original. But
you see,
I'm highly biased about that.
I'm young enough that I don't remember. I know that I have seen them, but I don't remember seeing the original versions. I grew up with the '97 edit.
Yeah. I grew up with the old Fox VHSs.
Yeah.
Anyways, I love the line, "You're renting my room."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love this. Like,
yeah. I don't want to get distracted on Star Wars because this is this is one of the best like little bits of performance that Mark Ruffalo does in this film, I think.
I agree. And it's funny because they actually filmed that scene as an opening that was deleted from The Incredible Hulk, of him going into the Arctic and trying to commit suicide and failing. And it actually sucks. Like, it's genuinely not a good scene.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that Fury was, kind of getting his gun ready, but that Cap was the one who was like, because I feel like Cap would have been the person that Banner would have listened to, kind of either him or Stark. But I'm glad that Fury didn't say anything.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I think that they needed to establish Cap as the leader in this. Um, so I think that they do have him taking point on those kind of conversations.
I'm trying to trace the path of the explosion from the engine
Hmm.
or down around and then right into the lab. Seems like an interesting connection there. I'm just, looking at that again
I
and going like,
mean,
I mean, it's for plot reasons, but like
Captain, they're overloading power conduits throughout the ship.
like an explosion went like into the lab, like from the floor. Just an interesting,
Well, actually, you know what? You know how I would have written that?
Okay.
You look at those engines, right? Um, what if it threw a blade?
That would have been cool.
Okay. So essentially, it's not that it was an explosion, but that it launched a blade into the guts of the ship. That's how I would have done it.
Yeah. This is.
Um,
We haven't talked about the music at all in this film.
we haven't Alan
Oh,
Silvestri.
yeah. Just fantastic. This is a good little bit of action music going on here. It's interesting that they all jump down except for Hawkeye, who takes the rope.
I think that they needed just that moment. It's a good moment of him sliding down among all of them.
It looks good.
I like this because it does establish Hawkeye as like competent, capable, formidable. It also is kind of a nod to the comics because he started as a villain. Yeah, Hawkeye was a bad guy.
I know very little about Hawkeye's like background.
He was raised in the circus.
One
Like
of those,
literally,
huh?
his background is he's a carny.
I don't love Scarlet in this scene, but I do think this transformation is pretty good. Just like taking the time here, and it's not instant.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of get like that he's actively fighting it. It's a good sequence of just him, just going through this.
Well, another part that I thought was kind of weak writing is that you're supposed to infer when he loses control. It's like Banner has no say in what's going on. But when Banner surrenders control and kind of joins with the Hulk, he has a little bit more of a say, like later in the movie. But that's another writing faux pas. Not quite Deus Ex Machina, but close. I almost said Deus Ex Mechanicus. That's the Warhammer in me coming through. Praise be to the Deus Mechanicus. But he's like, ooh, he's a raging beast here, but then later he's like in control. Good scene, classic. Spawned a million variations of him as the Joker.
Oh, is the sun coming up? I love that line. That is one of those that I love that because I know through personal experience that when you get over reliant on a system, you can forget some basics. And I've watched that
I'm just
happen.
like it's obvious that he was not recruiting from the Navy or the Air Force.
There's plenty of guys in the Navy that I think don't have a lot of old school skills anymore either. They're over reliant on their tech.
Would you give somebody the con who wouldn't be able to think like, oh, I can navigate by the sun?
I mean, probably not. But I mean, and you're right. They would have recruited probably out of the Air Force more than the Navy. Yeah. But I know that it just as time goes on, those old skills are just fading.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I do. I love this too. Just Cap's like, what? I have no idea what the heck this is. Because Cap would. He'd be like, this might as well be magic. I have no idea.
Yeah. Go
ahead.
This is a good scene, but it's a little odd in the middle of such a tense action sequence. Do you think it works to like break up the scene, or do you think it's kind of out of place?
The only reason why I think it works is that you have a couple things going on that are a little bit slower right now. You have, they don't know Hawkeye's on the ship yet. They don't, I do want to know where this is on the helicarrier. But
the bowels.
Yeah, I think it does work to a certain extent, but it's if it had gone on for like 1 or 2 more minutes, I think it would have been awful. It would have just felt very out of place. The fact they transitioned so quickly to this, that she just literally was trying to run away.
Yeah.
I
I like
just
that.
this fight I like. I think this is actually one of the best fights in the movie.
Yeah, this made me happy. Because I grew up, I got 3 of these books when I was young: Ultimate Guide to Spider-Man, Ultimate Guide to Hulk, and Ultimate Guide to X-Men. And I read the crap out of them. They were like made right around the time as the first Spider-Man movie, I think, because they had information on them about the first X-Men movie, but not the first Spider-Man movie. Um, and I read the crap out of them, and there was a whole thing in the Hulk one about other heroes that he's fought, and him and Thor have a huge rivalry about wondering who's stronger. I really don't like the speak English trope. It's in too many things. You know, you have the
Yeah.
nerdy person who says something technical, and then you have the other person going, English,
Yeah.
please.
I think
Bugs me.
Cap could have just just said, Tony, I have no idea what you're talking about, or something like that.
I'm from the 40s.
Yeah, that's okay. I both love that shot, but if you watch that shot in slow motion, it's a little rough actually. I love the staging of it. Like I love what it is, but the actual CGI on that slow mo hammer hit is a little rough if you look at it closely.
You know, I'm all for it. I'm fine with it being a little rough. I love it.
Oh, it's a great shot.
The behind the scenes here is really funny. They literally they actually filmed Chris Hemsworth choking a giant Hulk statue.
Nice.
Like a foam Hulk. Here's her dad.
I do appreciate here that the bridge crew is like competent. I mean, even though it's all Sam Jackson and Maria Hill, but the fact that so often you have, I don't know, just other people becoming incompetent, in order for the plot to happen. And it just would not make any sense for the bridge of this thing to have a bunch of incompetent morons on it that couldn't handle a couple dudes coming in.
Yeah. They don't make S.H.I.E.L.D. incompetent at all. They're a little faceless, there's not the main, you have her and you have Coulson. That's pretty much it,
Yeah. But I mean, I feel like
Also,
like Hawkeye and Black Widow are also part of the face of S.H.I.E.L.D. at this point because they are S.H.I.E.L.D. agents.
note that she calls this the wishbone, this kind of internal area.
Yeah.
And they give a good reason why this plane would be kind of close.
Well, how could, go ahead.
No, that's pretty much it. Like, I hate planes being too close to things, especially with modern fighter jets. So them sitting there going, you got to get a little close, and he's able to
He was a little too close though.
Yeah.
I love the detail of him sliding on the cockpit glass for a second. Like it would have been slick and the sound effect. It was good. Just that tiny moment of detail.
I love him catching it and just throwing him, and they need to make sure to know that the Hulk didn't kill anybody.
I love the
very effective
the
little
ejection.
found footage scene.
Oh yeah, the ejection of his heat sink there.
Very very grand, M1 grand.
Yeah. I love that Cap has a moment here of wait a minute, are these guys okay? And he's like, never mind.
Yeah. Love the grenade thing. Really good. I like how this action is filmed because
I like
Serenity's action was okay. Like the river scenes were the best, but that translates well into Captain America, I think.
Yeah. The only thing I hate about this is when he picks up this gun and just full on does the hip spray and pray right there. I hate that. Because then it's because they switch. He's when they go closer on him, he's shooting like an actual trained soldier. But that weird he's moving sideways and it's the full on 1920s Tommy gun, from the waist, and it just bugs me. Sorry.
What do you think of this USB arrow? Okay.
I mean it fits fully within the comic world of an arrow for quite literally everything.
Yeah. They actually bring it back in the What If series. It's actually literally the key to saving the multiverse. It's hilarious. I love it.
Okay, what do you think
He shoots a USB copy of Arnim Zola's mind into Ultron's body.
I think I remember that.
Yeah.
So do you take Widow when she's kind of sitting there having a little moment that she was just that shook up by almost dying to Hulk?
I
It seems odd to me.
I buy it. I don't know. I think that it's important to humanize her because she's had even her vulnerable moment turned out to be a manipulation. I think they needed a real vulnerable moment. And her coming face to face with the Hulk. This is a woman who's been able to trick gods and deal with frickin' Tony Stark, and she has come into contact with something she is completely defenseless against.
Yeah,
she
has
can't
nothing.
fight her way out of it. She can't charm her way out of it. She can't even outrun it.
But just the
I
idea
imagine
that in the
her.
yeah, I mean, I totally get that, but that she's literally sitting knees up, like shaking, is like
Okay, yeah.
she's I mean, she's a professional. She's like, I mean, absolutely it should affect her, but it was weird that she's literally like having like a knees to face, panic attack in the middle of this situation. It just seemed it seemed odd.
Was it both
think
knees or just one? Because she did have an injured leg.
Yeah, she did. Maybe. I mean, maybe it was just the way it was shot. I feel like you could have. I feel like there's a way you could have done it that didn't make her seem so like. Wait a minute. She just like. Okay. This. They are right on the edge in this movie of Mission Impossible and Mask reveals with Loki's duplicates.
Yeah.
Of doing it a few too many times in short succession.
I would agree on that. I've had the same thought. I'm just like, when did he split? But
it's super effective. Like, I mean, it's very like if it had been anybody but Coulson, it wouldn't have mattered. Like, we wouldn't have cared. We wouldn't even remember this. But the fact that it was Coulson,
like the only other person could have been like Fury.
Yeah,
but yeah.
Anyways, go ahead.
No, that's it. Coulson's just been great through this whole thing, and he's had substantial interactions with all of, like, I think everybody but Bruce, essentially.
Yeah. Well, and it really, I think, and this is maybe this is the defense of using the duplicate again, is that since he just used it, the audience is taken aback that much more by it. The fact that they think no, Coulson got the drop on him. Coulson really did get the drop on him, and for it to come out of nowhere again, that's why it's effective, but it also feels a little cheap.
No, I would agree with that. I've felt the same, but again, it's one of those things where I've rewritten it in my own head, where I'm like, makes sense if I was writing it, like Loki would never just he knows that Thor could get out if he's trying hard enough, so he's keeping him occupied while getting out of the way.
Yeah.
So he would probably use more than one duplicate in order to keep Thor occupied and his target elsewhere. And it just so happened that Coulson fell for the wrong god.
Yeah. I do think it's
that's how I would do it, but that's.
I think it's odd editing choice here to have this scene come after the entire tumble with Thor, because it makes it look like Loki sat there with his finger on the button until Thor literally hit the ground.
Yeah.
Like I would have actually had this happen and then cut to Thor. Yeah.
No, I agree. They bring that weapon back in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and he actually kills the season 1 villain with it.
Yes. Because it said it was based on the Destroyer. Or
the Destroyer.
The Destroyer.
They even use the same radiating effect and coloration on the barrel when he charges it up as the latticed body of the Destroyer. This moment is referenced in Winter Soldier when they mention that the new Insight helicarriers are repulsor based because Stark got an up close and personal look at the at the first one.
It makes sense that Stark could be like, yeah, this is we're gonna do better technology here.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Oh. I do appreciate too that Iron Man, he's not invincible. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
his armor has limits, and being thrashed
Yeah.
inside of a rotor that big would definitely
Mhm.
have an effect on his armor.
Okay. I also wanted to mention something. Well, one, the gun that this guy wields changes. It goes from like an carbine, like M4 style, to a vector at one point.
No,
Just
really.
want to point that out. But Iron Man's suit, you're talking about the golden legs.
Mhm.
That's how the original comic book suit looked.
The God
The God
rabbited.
rabbited.
It's a great line.
Very Joss Whedon.
Yeah. This is a good scene. I mean, I would say that, yeah,
It really is.
great. Yeah, both actors are great, and just the fact that Coulson recognizes that even this can like, he's still thinking about the mission. He's still thinking about, that's powerful.
Yeah. No, it's a great scene and very effective. I remember I was devastated.
Well, the
Like,
fact that
I remember watching it. Yeah.
yeah.
Go.
Well, the fact that his eyes don't close, that he's just, it's not your typical death scene. He doesn't play it like a, eyes closed and head off to the side. He just stops talking.
Yeah.
And
Which is
again, the music
unfortunately
here is
quite the other thing.
music here is so good. It's just subtle and subdued, and the line of "they're here," the medics are already here.
It's just like both of these guys liked him, and I mean, I think this would actually affect Tony because this is a guy who's been a working relationship. He's slightly antagonistic towards him, but he likes him.
Well, I think he likes him, and he also, it has to be going through his mind, how am I going to tell Pepper?
Yeah. Because he saved Pepper's life like several times in the first movie.
Yeah.
And he was also Stark's babysitter, if you recall.
Yeah.
In Iron Man 2. But I was saying about the gold legs on the Iron Man suit. You didn't like that. That's the original suit when he switched to gold and red. It was always like kind of a red leotard with red gloves, red boots, and then gold
legs and arms.
Like legs and arms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a good, I mean, right. I mean, the furious delivery of "there was an idea." I mean, that has been used so many times. There's some really good retrospectives on YouTube about this entire series, and one of my favorites literally is just "there was an idea."
Yeah. Oh, such a good little line. Did like every Avengers retrospective, both official and not, have used this line.
Oh yeah, and
it's delivered really well.
Yeah. And even there, he brings it up later, in the World Council meeting, but he says it here, that because we need them. That's its purpose, and that people would come because they're needed. I do.
They do.
Go ahead.
Go.
I was gonna say, I like that Tony is just like, he's like, he's so. Just, it's not his strength to deal with these. He just leaves. I appreciate that. Versus,
he's not an idealist,
no. But yeah, I mean, we have all this, and then we get to catch our breath for like 5 minutes, and then we are in New York.
Mm-hmm. Thor really has not much to do in this movie, though.
Nope.
Like, he just he talks to Loki. He tussles with Hulk, and now here he is feeling kind of dejected and defeated, and a little bit worried about his brother, and it's just like, that's it.
Yep.
That's all.
This is a funny scene.
Great.
It's funny because tonally, it's just kind of like, oh, okay, we're gonna just do a bit like this, but it is undeniably well acted and well written. And this,
I mean, this is
one off
Henry Dean
security.
Stanton.
Yeah, he's so good.
Like, we already saw him in Alien, This is one of his last roles before he died. But he's a legendary character actor.
Yeah.
Well,
and the fact that he's so just like nonchalant about, you're an alien? All right, well then, you gotta just like that. He's just That he's not scared. He's not running away. He's just like, I'm going to sit here and I'm just waiting for you to shrink down. Like, why would you assume he would shrink down? And, you know,
Well, he's from New York. Surely New York would know about the Hulk. I mean,
true.
he broke Harlem.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
I do not like the color shift they do for this little weird. I don't know. I mean, I get what they're going for. It's just I find it annoying.
I agree. I don't mind it so much that it would be like a negative on my negatives list. It's just like
it's just a minor irritation to me.
But I also have this thing about freaking how do you even describe it? Surrealism, I guess, dream sequences. I don't like them for the most part. And that's just another surrealistic dream sequence, even if it's very brief, and I'm really glad that they didn't.
Yeah, it's thankfully very short. I mean, it's just enough to kind of sell the point visually that Hawkeye is kind of, pulling out of it.
He's rebooting.
Yeah. I do love this cognitive recalibration. I hit you really hard on the head.
Yep. Kind of makes you sad for those other dudes that they... Well, then again, they also established that there was like Shield's enemies, so maybe they were just bad people.
Yeah.
I like this scene though. I think it's useful.
Well, I appreciate that she's acknowledging, like you were talking about, that she went up against Hulk, and she's like, "This is gods and monsters. This is not something that we can just beat through sheer determination or because we're really good shots. None of our skills have almost anything to offer this situation."
Which is actually kind of funny because in the comics, the only person to they bring him back, of course, but one of the only people to successfully kill the Hulk is Hawkeye.
How did he do that?
Banner had supplied him with an arrow that would temporarily stop his transformation into the Hulk, and essentially kill him. It was if I get out of hand, kill me. And Hawkeye took the shot, and it's actually what started the second Marvel Civil War between Iron Man and Captain Marvel.
Okay.
Which was not nearly as good of a series as the original.
When she says I've been compromised, I always feel like, okay, are you still referencing back to the original, like some unspoken thing deep in the past, or are you talking about something that just happened in this film?
No, I was kind of wondering that same thing.
Because, I mean, the way that she says I'm compromised, like that's different than I've got a past that I want to atone for. That's like an active, like I'm compromised. It's like an active, there's a problem right now that I need to be wary of. You know what I mean? Like just the connotation of that word is different than, read in the ledger, like a past mistake or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I do know what you mean. And that is something that's kind of annoying. Because I don't necessarily know what it means. Is it mentioning like her attachment to Hawkeye? Is that why she's compromised? Is it because she's like afraid of Hulk, or I don't know.
Yeah, this is a good scene though too.
Oh, really?
Because Tony really is like, and again, Robert Downey Jr. All props to him as a good actor. He doesn't know how to process this. He really is struggling. Just at a character level with how do you even look over the blood spear and just, but he also kind of like, I know it's just the turn here. It's just a good scene.
You seem like trying to deflect a little bit.
Well, he's deflecting, but he's also like he's the kind of guy. His brain never really stops, and he's just spinning. But then he like grabs something, and he'd be looking for something to pull himself out of it. I don't know. It's just I like this a lot.
He can control in this situation, which is something he struggles with.
Yeah.
I really don't like this though. I find this to be very like challenging for me to believe. I like the scene, I like the performance. I don't buy that he would have figured out where Loki was setting up based on, oh, he's going to my tower. There's never been any connection between Loki and Stark Tower.
Well, and Loki's not made any mention earlier of having a specific beef with Tony specifically.
Exactly. In fact, I feel like Tony and Loki just haven't had any interactions whatsoever, which is why they give him this very useful little conversation with him. Yeah, nice little suiting up scene.
Oh yeah.
But it also implies that Thor was just hanging out in a field for a few hours.
Yeah, it is interesting that like we have, Thor stares at his hammer, then we go back to Coulson getting, having his Coulson shooting Loki, and we don't go back to Thor until that right then.
Yeah, I really feel bad for Thor because he really doesn't have much of a part here.
Does he
What
have
do you think of this thing?
the using the cards? I mean, it seems very in line with something that Fury would do, and based on the conversation he had with Coulson when he died, it seems like the kind of thing that he would have assumed Coulson would have approved of as a way to make his death mean something more.
Yeah, I could see that.
And the fact that it's grabbing something that's already been established, I mean, I don't mind it.
Okay.
I think that it's effective. I think to Sam Jackson's delivery of they needed to push, like it's just he's delivered that line really well, and I like it.
What do you think of? I don't know, this whole thing between Iron Man and Loki.
It's almost hard to not view this through the lens of just time and all the memes from the various moments in it. I do get the idea that the fact that they establish that Stark's got to buy time. He needs his suit. He's had the dialogue with Jarvis right here. He's like, hey, he's thinking on his feet, and he's like, I need to buy just a few minutes. And so I do totally believe that Tony would have the, I guess arrogance is a good way to say it, where I can distract Loki for a while and give myself the window to get suited up and give time for the other guys to get here. So I mean, it's well acted. I mean, obviously, there's a reason why this scene, there's so many famous little moments and lines from this, this sequence. I like it. And to me, it fits within both Tony's character and the plot. It works.
And I think it also works for Loki, I think that Loki's really interested in Stark because we also know that Thanos knows who Stark is. I think that from watching later in the movies, you can infer almost that Loki is aware of Tony Stark the same way that Thanos is. And it's almost like he wants to interview him.
Do you think it's at this point, though? Because I thought that was more of a going into Ultron and... What would Tony have done that would have put him on?
I don't know.
I see. I don't think Tony's on their radar until this. I think this is what puts Tony on their radar, and then Ultron really puts Tony on Thanos' radar.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. There's this. I feel almost like in retrospect, I could see this if they had thought everything out. My own headcanon almost is that they'll have this plan almost, this desire to find the strong people. Okay. And Tony would be a good one to know.
Yeah. Oh no, he would. Sorry, really fast. I find this obnoxiously convenient. He can't mind control him because he taps his chest piece instead of his skin, or is it just that somehow it doesn't work on Tony? I've always found this just obnoxiously convenient. Even though it's played as a joke, but from plotting, there's no reason this shouldn't have worked.
I think that you're sitting there saying his arc reactor creates some sort of interference. Great. Why he would not hear the cling and try somewhere else?
Yeah,
is a little bit beyond me, but it's too funny to pass up.
Oh no, I mean it's a great scene. But it doesn't make any sense in relation to the plot as it's currently been established.
Yeah, I like this. It established him putting on the bracelets.
Oh yeah.
This is the Mark 7 suit. Great little suit. And I think that they were already thinking about Iron Man 3.
Oh yeah, because he's doing some of the injections and all that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this suit I like. It still has a decent amount of gold in it. But it mixes it up a little bit more, texture to it. I love
There's
that.
this
I
kind
love
of
love that they went back to
coppery.
the circle on the chest. Just so happy
Mhm.
about that.
This is kind of coppery silver addition to the legs that like blends in really well, but also like kind of breaks it up from being too monochromatic.
Yeah.
I like the addition of um that like tactical switch in his heads up display.
Yeah.
Always liked that.
I also
Great scene.
yeah, I think that they show off his back jets more in this scene than a lot of other shots too. I mean, they're obviously in other shots, but they really make it more prominent because he's like banking and turning more, and like this is. I do wonder, did he when he got this suit started? Because I'm not sure when they never established in this film when he started Jarvis on Mark 7, but if he did build it to be a little more of like go to war suit.
Maybe. I don't know.
I'm not sure because it's not in the movie anywhere.
Yeah, it's not something that I would describe as like think is it's not something unbelievable that he's working on another suit. Oh, that's right. Okay. This waitress that pops
Yeah.
up throughout here. Do you know who this is?
Oh yeah, she's the voice of Ellie in the Last of Us games. She's also been in a couple big films. Yeah, she's a great voice actress.
Yeah, her name's Ashley Johnson. One of the big things that she is the entire YouTube series of Critical Role. She's one of the main players.
Oh, okay. I've not seen it. I've heard of it,
Big in
but not
nerd
seen it.
circles. It wouldn't be your speed. But she's funny. She's actually a really fantastic comedic like improv actress. And she was going to have a larger part. They have her in several deleted scenes. Kind of tying into Captain America having originally been the main character.
Yeah.
There was going to be this kind of flirty relationship with her, and he's not really sure whether or not to not really sure whether or not to move forward in trying to flirt with somebody yet. You know, he's not there.
Yeah.
But she represents that kind of, down home American girl, hard working, cute, and that's also why they give her some lines at the end with the like interviews.
Yeah. No, and she's a good actress. So this this entire battle is interesting because generally speaking, I feel like it's structured fairly well as far as you can follow what's going on. You kind of keep the geography straight for the most part, and they have enough dialogue to kind of, but it's interesting as they progress and as the T'Chari are coming through, and the idea of containment, trying to keep so it's just part of the city that gets I don't know. It's a pretty good structured battle, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I generally find the final act of this film pretty good.
I do too, with the exception of that absolutely horrendous writing problem that I mentioned.
Yes, yes.
Thor and Loki, did we talk through them having that conversation?
We did.
Already? Oh, dang. There's that moment when Loki's demeanor kind of changes. It's almost like you see regret in his face.
Well, yeah, when Thor's like, stop this madness now, and he kind of looks off to the city for just a second. Yeah, you get that moment.
Yeah. So I can't say absolutely if this was in Loki season 2 or it was something that was supposed to be inferred, but like he's messing with time, right? And he's like skipping back. That was supposed to be a moment when he actually is Loki of the future, looking back on his evil. Or something like that. So they actually add that into this movie because he does have that momentary demeanor change. And I don't know. I like that idea a lot.
I like I haven't heard that. I've watched all of Loki season 2, and I must have missed that or just not remembered it.
Okay, so it might have been something they were intending to do because it's been a while. I haven't seen it since it came out.
No.
I like the addition of these weird like space whales.
Yeah.
It really took me off guard the first time I saw it. I was genuinely kind of flabbergasted.
It's right here.
Of like, what the heck? Yeah,
right
here. Right here. Like, look at him. He's suddenly almost like a different character.
Yeah. Yeah, so they had most of the conversation already. I was thinking that was part of it, but yeah, they cut back to it right
and then all of a sudden, he's back to evil Loki. Like, I would totally use that in a in a time travel Loki thing. Like, I don't know. I think it's great.
I do appreciate
and-
every now and then when Thor is just like, all right, we're done.
Yeah. He's just like, okay, that's plan A has failed. Time for plan B. I think that scene was useful because it establishes that Thor is fallible, I guess.
Yeah. I was just thinking about this. One of the problems with Cap's helmet in this movie, I mean, there's many problems with this uniform, as we've talked about. The fact that he doesn't have a chin strap, it helps so much having his helmet be a separate piece later in the costumes.
Yes.
And something
Oh
about
my god.
the chin, you know, like an actual like piece there, it just helps make it look, I don't know, just like
official and military.
It does. Because yeah, he looks ridiculous with that helmet on.
Yeah. And he really didn't like it, and it's actually kind of funny because the same thing happened with Falcon and Winter Soldier into Captain America 4, where they had this kind of coif, almost as half coif, whatever you want to call it, on Falcon as Captain America at the end of that thing with the Wakandan suit. And he said that one of his stipulations for coming back for Captain America 4 was that they get rid of that because it was so uncomfortable. And you see it removed from all the others.
I do love that little moment. You and I remember Budapest very differently.
Okay, this was like the age of parkour. Do you remember when parkour was just like a huge thing?
Oh yeah.
And I remember them adding that in there, and I'm like, they're just capitalizing on the parkour stuff.
Well, because when did Casino Royale come out?
2004.
Okay, so it's been a little while. But another little cameo by a regular player in Joss Whedon work, the cop there.
Which one, the young one or the old one?
The younger one. He had a huge presence in Dollhouse, and he also
was actually going to have.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, and the older cop actually, he had a major role for like 12 years in the show Blue Bloods, as a cop. So he's played a cop a lot.
He was also in Dark Knight, wasn't he?
No,
that's different actor.
The younger, yeah. Well, the younger guy, he's another Whedon regular.
But the younger guy, he also has a whole bunch of scenes in the deleted scenes.
Oh, really?
Captain America like throws him that gun, the Chitauri arm weapon, and he uses it, and he's like fighting. And for a second, you're supposed to be like, is he gonna be revealed to be like a future Avenger or something like that? And then they actually have it to where he gets killed, kind of side by side with Cap.
Interesting. See, and it would have been effective to have Cap lose something like that. By the way, I'm glad. There's two things about this. I'm glad that Widow switches to one of their guns because the idea of Glock 9mm doing much against these guys is kind of ridiculous. And I appreciate the detail of Hawkeye kind of collecting arrows.
Yeah. I like his little selectable.
Oh, it's very
thing,
cool.
You know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's a good design.
Yeah.
No boxing glove arrow though.
Boxing glove arrow. And there is subtle purple in his costume, which is very dark, and they kept it very it's very subtle. I'm bringing the party to you.
Yep, I remember this from the trailer, and I went, what the heck?
Scarlett Johansson does have two or three genuinely funny lines in this movie.
This scene was convenient. It's good, but it was convenient.
Yeah. Well, like you said,
get out of the way, guys.
Yeah, you feel like move perpendicular just a little bit. This is the kind of thing where, at first glance, I found this to be a big plot hole, and as I understood more about Hulk and the fact they're still standing there, it's like, dudes, they just,
and like this rocket's gonna do anything. They just wanted that scene.
They did.
Hawkeye just kneeling behind an engine block.
Well, and
it is
to hit the.
It is a plot hole.
Oh yeah,
and I'll fight you on that.
Well, I'm saying it's less of a plot hole. And of course, the big shot here. I mean, this is a famous shot.
This is literally the scene that I'm painting.
Yeah.
Like, they take all of their poses and everything. It's great.
No, what I was gonna say is the whole what you've talked about. Banner has more control when he kind of gives into it. I mean, it's less of a plot hole when you get into the nerdy details of Hulk and Banner, but it's still as presented in this film, completely in isolation by people who know nothing other than what this movie have told them. It is a plot hole in that context.
Mm-hmm.
Is that fair, you think?
Yeah. Legolas. That got a lot of laughs in the theater.
Yeah.
So something that bugs me is that in Endgame, I think it was, Rocket is like the Chitauri. You know, they're like idiots of the galaxy type of thing. You know, and it kind of bugged me. Like, I feel like they end up downplaying this event, by having stuff like Rocket insulting the Chitauri, who's like, just destroy the mothership, you know? And
I mean, I do appreciate that it's because I actually, so skipping ahead a little bit here, I actually kind of hate the idea that they just all conveniently die when the mothership gets, like, that's actually something that bugged me even in the theaters. I remember the very first time being like, wait a minute, what? Like, they just all magically go offline.
I hate it.
So I appreciate...
It's one of my gripes with this movie.
Yeah, I appreciate that somebody in another movie, like, made a point of pointing out the fact that that's stupid. So I appreciate that. But yeah, downplaying that this would have been a monumental event. This would have been like, wait a minute. So this is now... I mean, people knew about the Avengers. Obviously, people knew about Iron Man. And anybody who wanted to read history would have known about Cap. You know, S.H.I.E.L.D. obviously would have stayed in the shadows. The events of Thor could have definitely been kept under wraps from the general public. But this was the big, no, we're hiding it. Aliens are real. The whole world changes. Like, this would have been a pivotal event in human history within this timeline. So,
and it gets brought up many times throughout other movies. It's brought up in The Eternals. It's a main key thing in Iron Man 3.
Oh yeah.
There's several others. It's like, and then New York happened. That's always a big one that they mention.
Oh yeah. And then even into the right after this movie is when the Netflix, you know, it's brought up in Daredevil in the first season of Netflix's Daredevil, where it's like, oh yeah, the incident in New York. Obviously, Homecoming, Spider-Man Homecoming, it launches the entire villain arc in that movie.
And totally messes up the timeline.
Yeah.
They do give Hulk some really good moments in here.
Oh yeah.
So, one of the things I was going to talk about, because it's essentially just kind of action for a minute here. Did you know that the lineup for the Avengers was totally different originally?
Like originally in the comics or in this movie?
No, well, a bit of both. For this, the movie was going to be a lot more comic book accurate. In that,
well, Ant-Man was supposed to be
Ant-Man and the Wasp the Wasp was supposed to make her debut in this movie, not Black Widow. And they decided to change that once they started having problems with the Ant-Man movie. And they had to switch directors, and it ended up coming out at the end of Phase 2. Really fast. So what do you think of this? Him boosting her up and the way that she's able to just, like, catch a thing like this.
So, it's a good shot, but that would have ripped her arm off. There's no human being in the world, even Cap would have struggled with that.
I think that they need her to have a big moment, you know?
No,
because this is the key in for the big tracking shot. Or oneer, I should say, because it's not a technical traction.
Well, it's I don't mind it because it would be a challenge to give her anything meaningful to do in this battle. And I don't mean that as an insult to Black Widow, but just that in this scale of a conflict, what is she? I mean, Hawkeye got something to do. He's up there, you know, being the eyes in the sky, and Cap at least has the strength to take them on. They don't need
a rogue in this battle.
No, they really don't. I do. This whole sequence though is good. Like this, you know, oneer using air quotes because obviously this is a composite oneer. It's not an actual oneer. But
well, that's the difference between a tracking shot and a oneer, though.
Yeah. You're right. It's shot as a oneer. I guess I'm thinking of like an actual oneer that is legitimately one take.
Yeah, tracking shot.
No, but I've always never mind. I will. I have no problem forgiving it because they had to give her something to do. This moment definitely made me laugh many, many times.
Oh yeah,
It's just funny.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
It was great.
does it break? And I'm using this very timidly. Realism to have Widow pull it off? Absolutely. Is it something that ruins anything substantially? No, not at all to me.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're
I
right. I
agree.
kind of forgot that we do get this tiny shot of the National Guard doing nothing.
Well, apparently I was just reading some stuff because I was wondering about that. There's some line that's delivered by the World Security Council that's almost implying like they're leaving Shield to their own devices, almost because they don't like Shield's power and all the stuff that they're doing, and they're using this event to kind of undermine Shield.
I'm so happy, by the way. So this moment here, oh, thank goodness.
Yes.
Get his
They
helmet
tear
off.
that ugly ass helmet. But do you know what this implies, though? Right? Look how dirty he is, and he lost the thing. Also, always love Captain America curling up into a little ball behind his shield.
Oh yeah, and that's a great comic moment right there.
That's a Chris Evans thing.
He's done
He's
that
the
in
one who
comics,
started
hasn't he?
doing that.
Really?
I'm sure he has, but that was one of those things where it was something that they were kind of establishing.
Well, and it's funny
a
that
bit.
his helmet's like physically, I love this. That's a council's decision.
Stupid.
Only Sam Jackson can deliver that line and make it not seem cheesy. It's a stupid ass decision. Okay. What were we gonna say though about what is it? What does it imply? Or like he's dirty or something? You're about to say something. I'm curious.
You get to Endgame, and Captain America encounters himself, right?
Yeah.
So he went and changed into just a whole new suit for reasons. Like why?
Hmm.
I don't know.
I do appreciate
It's just
this is a good little moment.
Mm-hmm.
I do appreciate that Loki catches it. Like, you really gonna think you're gonna take me out that way? But then the little surprise is nice. Although it is conveniently right next to Stark Tower.
Very convenient.
Because I'm pretty sure if you go back to where Legolas was Legolas. I can't believe I just unironically did that. Hawkeye. That he wasn't right next to Stark Tower.
Yeah, he was.
What was he?
Yeah.
Okay.
He was probably like less than half a block away because they have Stark Tower being just over Grand Central Station, and the piece of road where they were and taken up to a building top was just in front of Grand Central Station. So I would say that he is less than a quarter mile away.
Yeah. So that shot.
Yes, that shot.
It's cheesy. I freaking love it. I mean, it's funny. It's great. The little moan from Loki and Hulk saying "puny God." It just works.
I wouldn't even call it cheesy. I think it's just good.
No,
I think it works.
I think maybe not cheesy. I think it's a little bit. It goes almost into like Looney Tunes like level, but it's just still awesome. You know what I mean? It's just it's a little bit like okay, almost like a cartoon action scene, but it's so well shot and it's just funny. And it's just at this point, you so just want Loki to just get the crap beat out of him. That it's just I don't mean that in any derogatory way, it's just, but it does seem a little bit cartoony.
It is cartoony, but it was so unexpected.
Yeah. Well, they gave
so
it away in the previews.
And not in the previews I watched.
Are you sure?
Yeah. It was a
No. Okay. No.
Okay, that's different. I got it a week before everybody else.
Okay. No. I got it mixed up. The shot they gave away in the preview was when Hulk side punches Thor after they take down one of the big whales. That was spoiled in a preview.
So, like I said, I was living in England at the time when this came out, and I forgot about this. I got it to see it a week before everybody else. Because it
I
came
do
out at the end
appreciate
of April in England, but May in
May 4th.
America.
It was Star Wars Day. This movie came out.
Mhm.
I appreciate that the music shifts a little bit here, and we actually kind of have the start of like the heroes kind of hitting a little bit of a wall here. Like they're just
Yeah,
starting to get desperate. Things are getting a little bad all of a sudden.
yeah. I think that they were struggling to figure out something that would make the Hulk kind of have trouble.
Yeah.
Hmm.
There's some not logistical, but just it stretches my
It's strange credulity.
yes, that any governing body would this easily order a nuke over Manhattan. No matter how bad the situation is, it just a tiny bit to me. Like that would just be the person that would be like, I made that decision, I made that call to nuke Manhattan, like literally 15 minutes after this thing started.
You see, I don't know, because one, I think that politicians are usually like heartless idiots and would do that absolutely.
No, I absolutely
But
believe
I also
that
think
there are
that they
people who
have.
go ahead, sir.
I think that they have protocols in place even today for an alien invasion, and I think that
Oh yeah,
after a certain amount of time, if they think that a beachhead has been secured, it doesn't matter where they are, they would just blow it. They'd nuke it.
it's more of a no, I agree with you that it's more the that somebody would be willing to like go on record as taking responsibility for that decision, I guess.
Yeah, I think that they would. I think that they would have to. I think that you have to go on record. But that's also why you're part of the World Security Council, right?
Yeah.
You got to be willing to keep the world security.
I'm getting sleepy.
A fun little moment of them, like the slow-mo of the catching the hammer and the shield at the same time.
Yeah.
Funny bloopers for that scene of them just struggling to catch the stuff. Oh yeah,
I'm sure I've seen
we
those,
passed
but
over my
go ahead.
evil Deus Ex Machina, where she's just like, "Oh, the staff. It can go through the shield when nothing else can, because I programmed it that way, because I secretly knew what I was doing." Just out of nowhere.
I also
Like, that's a major plot point.
And I also don't why would she like check with them before she did it? If she thinks that she can like close the portal, why would she be like, "Yeah, I can close the portal." Any reason why I shouldn't? Why would she ask
That's
that?
a really
Why-
good question.
Why would she bother to ask that? She would immediately do it. There's no reason that she would have no idea there's any good reason why she wouldn't immediately end this thing.
I've never thought of that, and now I'm mad.
It makes it worse. Oh, anyways.
Oh god, maybe Age of Ultron is just a better movie.
I think this is a movie. If you take Age of Ultron's like ratio of good and bad compared to this, I think this movie might still have an edge because this movie has some fantastic character stuff. But it's not as far apart as the internet would have you believe.
I would agree with that. I think Age of Ultron's big sin is the Black Widow Hulk thing.
I do really hate I know this is like the internet dunks on this a lot. I in the theaters I cringed at the whole, I can't have kids, and so, I'm just as much a monster as you. It's like, what the crap writing is this? That just bugged me.
Yeah, well, it was supposed to tie into the whole thing with like the family, like
He is very
because
poorly
you have
done.
Hawkeye's happy family, right? And they both kind of imply that that's what they want out of life too, but neither of them can have it because of their various issues.
It's
and it's just
monster line,
clunky.
though. Yeah, it's clunky, and calling herself a monster, it's just weird. It's bad dialogue.
Yeah.
So okay,
It-
we do have the convenient solution here. Really good shot on his eyes, by the way, with the lighting. All of a sudden, they got lighting.
Yeah.
Right. So,
Mhm.
it's interesting here that they're not foreshadowing, because Josh didn't know what they were going to do in Endgame, but Stark making a sacrifice play, which was a big deal at the end of Endgame, and kind of the culmination of him versus Cap. But there is, he does that here in a way, he at least is willing to. I mean, I believe that he didn't know at all if he'd make it back out of that.
Well, they very obviously wanted to play into the previous line of the two of them, like trading barbs.
Yeah.
Everything special about you came out of a bottle. And then you're not the one to make the sacrifice play. When at the end here, Iron Man acquiesces leadership of the team just shortly after their big epic spin shot to Captain America, because he realizes that he's the one who has the respect of everybody around them. He's going to be listened to, and he has the tactical skill. So that makes him more special than anything that could be in a bottle.
Yeah.
And then Stark makes the sacrifice play.
Yeah. Oh, it's good. It's interesting that this movie has kind of the big Tony character moment be at a character level very similar to the big Endgame moment.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I think Endgame does it. Yeah, and I think Endgame does it better, and obviously at a larger scale. But it's like it's a mini version of his major arc here, and it makes sense that he
that's kind of on purpose.
Yeah, and in the heat of the moment here, more in that versus Endgame, the time is there for him to really kind of think about it and process it and make the choice anyways. And the stakes were higher. He had his daughter, and he had I'm not bringing this up as a criticism. It's interesting that they did go through that several times, and that it's effective for him.
Mm-hmm. That shawarma line that they tie into the end credit scene, was improvised.
I love the.
I remember the "Please tell me nobody kissed me." Get me get a good.
Oh yeah, good chuckle. Of course, a good shot there with everybody. Just the Hawkeye getting to get center stage.
Mm-hmm. And then, like,
really think
they're just like
Tom Hiddleston could have absolutely been a great Bond. By the way,
Bond.
He could have been a good Bond.
He's a little pointy. I don't associate Bond with pointy.
No, he's been. Did you ever see? Was it? He did a 6-episode show. I forget what it was called, where he played like a spy, and he was really good. Anyways, okay, so we have the whole kind of wrap up here.
I don't like this montage at all. I hate it. Really, this actor here was on Angel, this black guy.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
They actually tie him. He is the main plot of the series premiere of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I didn't know that until I recently rewatched it. I went, oh, they tied that in.
And Thor's just like, peace out. I do appreciate I appreciate the gag, by the way. Just the idea of like, I don't want to hear Loki talk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, here's Ashley Johnson.
Yep.
Ellie, most known for Ellie. She's won several awards for that. But I don't like that little montage. I don't like the music to it. I think that it's all very convenient and a little cheesy.
Well, it's also
supposed to be.
It's also like super fast. I mean, I guess we don't know how much time has gone by here. I mean, it could have been, a couple days, or we're not really sure, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they show him put the gag on in Endgame.
Yeah. I guess, the thing is that like Steve is already all cleaned up and Tony's all cleaned up.
Yeah. One of the things that occurs to me is that Mjolnir is not mentioned or talked about. They talk about the hammer at one point, but like they never mention anything about Mjolnir. Placement.
Sorry, they're really hard on that in the first season. Like the one time he's not driving an Audi. Yeah, it's he looks good on that Harley.
Yeah, but they had to get the little hair wave.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was a reshoot or digital, but people noticed it in the original screenings. The movie wraps up real fast.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think the movie is I think they had to keep it under 2.5 hours.
Right? Um, yeah.
I do like this line though. I like the idea of just, we can trust that if we need them, they'll be here. It's just it's a simple kind of old school sentiment, but I like it for the heroes.
Mhm. Yeah. Movie was filmed in 93 days.
Hmm. With the little Pepper shows up here. I'm assuming they shot this at the same time. Obviously, with her, they
They
wouldn't have.
had to have, because I think she's even wearing the same clothes.
No, she's a different outfit.
Oh no, she's not. Yeah,
Not wearing the
different
little cut off shorts.
Mm.
But well, they had to like redress the set, yeah, with a couple scaffolding, that kind of stuff.
No, that's digital. Look at it. That's digital compositing.
Oh, you're right. That plastic is not real.
Yeah, they filmed that on a green screen.
Maybe with the whole A thing there is a little over the top.
Oh,
or
I love it.
you like it?
No, perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
Now
I thought it
this,
was great.
I do like this. The roll over all the different weapons and kind of accoutrements of the different characters.
Yeah, to an extent, same.
Well, I think it works because you're just ultimately this movie is all about just these 6 characters.
Weirdly, the lighting is good.
It's because Whedon had probably nothing to do with this.
You know, I kind of want to go look at his other stuff now.
Well,
I'll have to look at the lighting more closely in Age of Ultron.
I do think from memory, Age of Ultron is a prettier movie.
It's browner. That's all I can say. It's browner.
All right.
But yeah, I love the battle worn damage. I remember like in this one, I keep saying I remember. There's something to the just kind of LED look of like Widow's stuff that I'm not the biggest fan of.
Yeah.
Like this stuff right here. It's just, I don't know, it's a little weird to me.
It's a little too aqua colored. I appreciate the details of showing like the threads and the arrows right there though.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, right here. I mean, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, it screws in like that, and then you have to figure out how do they do the Hulk, and they have the cracked glasses and the purple pants and like a still image of the.
Oh man, this I hate though. That would be the worst holster in the world. This has no trigger coverage at all. For Fury, they show the gun in the holster.
Right,
but it's like
I didn't even think about that because he'd shoot himself in the leg.
Oh, absolutely, it'd be like the worst holster design in all. Like a holster has one job, but 2: keep the gun in place and protect the trigger from being accidentally activated. Anyways, here we go. Big first big post credit or mid credit.
Yeah. Before they have any. So I'll say something after.
Now I remember this line, the whole to court death. A lot of internet speculation about, I guess, a comic thread where Death is an actual like character and Thanos like was in like love with her in the comics, and there's a whole thing there, and that people really
very much is.
Yeah, nerds latched onto that hard, and I had no idea about it. I remember watching a lot of IGN videos and whatever about speculation and things you missed and what does it mean, and that was the big, right?
Yeah, no, that's actually what I was going to bring up.
All right. Well, you know more about it than I do,
so
the
go court death. Yeah. So literally, one of the things is that Thanos' big thing wasn't to save the universe. He's essentially sending gifts to Lady Death. And she does have a physical form. She has a physical avatar. In fact, she exists alongside the beings that we saw at the end of Thor: Love and Thunder. She exists in that white realm kind of thing. And the thing is, she has another guy who's after her as well. That actually ends up putting him in conflict, Thanos in conflict with this other character over the affections of Death herself. A guy by the name of Deadpool. And
like
they have
Deadpool?
had... Yes.
Okay.
They have had entire things between the two of them, like Thanos and Deadpool competing to impress Death. Lady Death, as she's called.
Okay.
What do you think of this song?
I was
Is it
okay.
Soundgarden?
I do not like this. I was literally, as you were talking in my back of my mind, I'm thinking like, this kind of dates this movie to end this with like some kind of like pop rock song from whenever. I don't like it at all. I think this is the kind of movie that just needs a good medley of Alan Silvestri's music playing over the whole thing. I mean, I think of the epic tribute to Howard Shore that is Return of the King's credits. That's what this movie should have had. I actually I kind of hate this.
The band? Isn't this the guy who did the Bond song for
Which one?
Casino Royale?
Maybe, I don't know. No, that's what's his face? It's like he's famous somewhere from people that.
He's dead.
Just, is he? Okay. Anyways, I don't like it at all. I think it feels out of place because this feels like a '90s action movie, like end credits all of a sudden.
Yeah.
I just it was like I remember.
It's Chris Cornell from Soundgarden.
Oh, okay. I mean,
and he's the guy who did the Bond song.
Okay. Well, I mean, no disrespect to him. It's weird to have a pop rock song playing at the end of this. Similar to I remember at the end of Mummy Returns, they hit into this like this song but by the band live. I remember it weirdly because I remember the music video was like this big deal for like a hot minute. I was working at group homes at the time and it was on MTV a lot. But anyways, sidebar. Just like, wait a minute, you had this big fantasy epic and now it's like a top 40 MTV song playing over the credits. It's weird.
Yeah, no, it's really weird. I don't like it.
But I'm a big, I mean, we could do an entire podcast about movie scores. I freaking love movie scores. You and I are both people who listen to movie scores and game scores just on their own, no irony, because they're just awesome. So,
well, also, I'm just not a musical person by nature, kind of like most people are, and I don't know, they do it for me.
I'll fight anybody. This is not objectively a good song. This is not good music. This is very generic, poppy, overproduced pop rock. I hate it.
Like, I like Chris Cornell's vocals.
Soundgarden actually had some good stuff.
But the music around it is just kind of bland.
Well, and they're also just really messing with his voice a lot in the post for this song. I mean, I'm a very music. I could talk music outside of score all day long. I love music. I love pretty much every genre of music, and I want somebody who loves this song to explain to me why, because I don't think it deserves it. But
interesting.
Anyways,
okay.
Back to the movie.
Yeah. I mean, if we are discussing part of the movie, it's the song.
I know, but I was thinking, okay, so coming up, this was shot like literally a few weeks before the premiere, right? This last final
that is
shawarma.
Correct.
Okay.
And if you look very closely at Chris Evans' face, he's covering it with the gauntlet the whole time, and he doesn't eat because he had to have a giant awkward prosthetic put over his face because he had a giant beard that he grew for the movie Snowpiercer.
Yeah.
Great movie, by the way.
Yeah, Snowpiercer on our list. That should be right to get to eventually.
It should be somewhere. Yeah. I mean, eventually. The guy who directed Mickey 17 that I mentioned earlier. I don't know his name. I should, but
he won the Academy Award
it.
for Parasite, didn't he?
Parasite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Korean guy. Very talented.
He did that. There's a lot of people who think, and there's a lot of reason to think maybe they're right, that Snowpiercer is a weird shadow sequel to Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Interesting.
Seriously, dude, go look up a video on that. It's amazing. Okay, this right here, it's starting now. This suite is the Avengers medley. And just before it, they had the kind of like weird techno music to it. And I really don't like it. Like, and to get like this really great crescendo on Spotify, you have to listen to this like weird techno opening. Don't like it.
I think of the Avengers theme in such isolation that I kind of don't. Yeah, I really hadn't thought about it.
So, where would you rank this movie in the MCU? like using quarters.
Really fast. I do like this scene. It's effective.
Oh,
I mean, they
it's
just are
perfect.
exhausted. I love Hawkeye. Just like I'm freaking tired, man.
Shawarma sales had increased after this movie by hundreds of percent.
Well, everybody went out to like see what the heck it even was.
Dude, shawarma is good.
I've
It
never
is
had it.
so stinking good. You've never had shawarma?
I've meant to many times. It's just not, you know. But it's just one of those that I haven't intentionally missed. I've just missed. So this movie's hard to rank to me because I feel like you have to almost have two caveats for it. You have to like rank it based on when it was released and then in a vacuum.
Okay.
And when it was released, I think it rates really high because it accomplishes something truly phenomenal. It did manage. I mean, this is a movie that could have easily been awful. If it was written poorly, if this was handled by the wrong team, I mean, for all of Joss Whedon's public persona issues now and very real issues as a human being,
Yeah.
I still think he's a way better writer than not. I mean, I think that he's got issues, but I mean, the guy's still a talent. And I would argue that with anybody who doesn't like him. I mean, you don't have to like him, but he's a good writer. He's written way too much good stuff to like dismiss him because of whatever. And
you can even admit like a lot of these weirdos like Roman Polanski and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You can admit that they're talented even if they're personally like screwed up.
Yeah. So I think this is the comparison to me is almost like Endgame. Endgame also has to be in that. You kind of have to think of it like, no, this was as a culmination, as this cultural event at a level that like maybe 4 or 5 other films in the history of film have ever managed to do. It's this movie's special, and this movie was. I mean, I left the theater very blown away. I mean, to me, the comparison of when I walked out of Phantom Menace at the age of 18, going, I had a lot of fun because I just got to watch the mall fight, and that was good. But I also have a suspicious feeling that movie wasn't very good. It was a mixed, like literally walking out of it, and I stood in line for 8 hours to see Phantom Menace on opening day. So like I was there, everybody. I missed a day of school because I was like, I'm not going to miss this thing opening day, and there was no digital pre-sales back then in '99. Anyways, I digress. This was a movie that, as much as going back, I have many nitpicks, as you've heard tonight. I walked out of the theater going, heck yeah, that was amazing. And I don't want to just dismiss that because the benefit of 13 years of analytics and comparisons and what came after it, drew it down. But at the same time, if you're stepping back and just as a film in a vacuum, it's got issues. And compared to other Marvel films in a vacuum, I would call this kind of right in the middle. Maybe the top of like the third, like the middle third of the MCU. I mean, I like to break the MCU into kind of 3 tiers, kind of amazing, solid, and eh. And I would put this, I would put this near the top of like that middle section for me, because again, for all the problems, it nails the characters, and it has so many great interactions and conversations, especially. Starting Cap and Tony and their relationship was established in this film, and that is carried on so well. And the being that linchpin of this battle in New York, like being a shifting point for the entire world, and there's a lot to love. And I feel like it's easier to kind of find fault with this movie because it was considered so highly for so long. It's almost like makes it easy to dunk on it a little bit. Whereas it's like, no big deal to dunk on movies that were never considered as good as this movie. So anyways, I'm ranting at this point, but it's, I would call it top of the middle.
I have a podcast if you can't rant, man.
Yeah. I would call it near the top of the middle, to be vaguely specific.
No, I agree with you. It's just like I realize that it's hard breaking things down into um, into these kind of boxes. Like that's something I've been struggling with because I have certain movies among the MCU that I will defend that some will say like, "Oh no, that's an absolutely god awful movie. How could you defend that?" Stuff like Age of Ultron. I think that that's a better movie than people give it credit for in some areas, despite having some massive problems. Same thing with like Eternals. Um, but so I'll end up like trying to kind of rank things and be like, oh, as a film, like this is down there. And I'm sitting there going, but I can't possibly put the original Avengers movie next to freaking Eternals. Like that seems like blasphemy, you know? Um, so it's just the fact is, I know that if I have kids, right, and I'm showing them the Marvel movies for the first time in their like early teens, right, and or late preteens or whatever you want to call it, and I'm like trying to get them stoked. I know that showing them the first one is going to be one of the rougher moments because it just kind of is already kind of dated and culturally significant, but not good by today's standards. And it would be very glossed over and torn apart if it came out today.
Yeah. Didn't this movie broke all kinds of records financially, by the way, right?
Yes. At the time that it came out, it was the third highest grossing movie of all time.
Yeah, and like its opening weekend was like pretty epic. I remember
Huge.
it.
Oh my god, it was huge.
As much as this was anticipated as being a big deal, like it really this was because none of the Phase One movies, like they were all successful and they were all profitable. Some way more than others, but like even
I think that
Cap.
technically Captain America was a bomb.
No, I mean, Captain America broke even, which according to Hollywood math is at least it didn't lose money. It was the worst performing for sure, but I'm pretty sure it wouldn't be considered a bomb. I think it would just be considered a disappointment. Because bomb usually means that it doesn't even break even. And break even is twice its budget worldwide. And I think if you look at the math, it's like right there. Anyways, I mean, this was the movie that reset the expectation and then followed, and I actually don't hate Iron Man 3, but the fact that Iron Man 3 was $1 billion film is crazy. It would never have been $1 billion film if it hadn't come right after this movie. But this movie is what reset the expectation to, oh no, you're not a real big movie in the MCU unless you break $1 billion.
This was the first one to break $1 billion.
Yeah.
It had a approximately $225 million budget, and it brought in a measly $1.5 billion.
Yeah, it's
to compare though, the previous movie before this one, Captain America: The First Avenger, had a budget of approximately $200 million. Like Captain America: First Avenger cost almost as much as this movie, and it made $370 million.
Yeah.
It didn't even double its budget.
Yeah. What does it mean? Like, it by no means am I saying that Cap vs. Avenger was like, a big hit, but it was, well, and the budget's estimated, it's kind of in a range. So, anyways, it's.
I know. I just. It's just weird to me,
It is. It's interesting that the movie that we both love so much is one of the worst performing. Although adjusted for inflation, Cap 4 is not going to pass First Avengers worldwide gross when you adjust it for inflation. It's just kind of crazy.
Oh goodness, and it's also one of the most expensive.
Yeah. Oh yeah, especially because of reshoots and randomness. This is a tiny mini rant for the end of this thing. You mentioned you liked the air battle in Cap 4.
Technically speaking,
I have so many issues with that battle.
I do too. Trust me. There's
okay. I was just about to say
about it.
When you brought that up earlier, I'm just like, as like a military guy, I'm like, so much about that battle is just stupid.
Oh no, I actually very much agree with you on that.
I was curious.
There's certain things about it I remember watching and going like, oh, that's a really good set piece to be using for the background. There's this thing that he does where he connects the shield to his little bird drone, and it flies behind him, deflecting things. And I'm like, oh, that's so smart. The image of him cutting through a plane wing with
Yeah.
his falcon wings is a great little image. There were so many things right about it in
Sam,
how it was filmed and how it was like set up, that if they had been putting out, why does it have to be a fighter jet? Put out something droney. Put out something like another version of Falcon that's Chinese or something.
yeah. No, Sam Wilson makes some good choices. Like he's actually thinking tactically and does a good job. It's just the actions of the opposing navies is so. There's no version of that would ever have happened in real life the way it went down.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
the amount of
No,
planes,
that-
the amount of planes in the air. The fact the president was on like some cruiser when there was an aircraft carrier over there was just like struck me as like stupid, because that's not how that works. The president's on the aircraft carrier. There's a lot of things just militarily that are just. There was no military consultant from the Navy involved in the structuring of that scene in any way.
Yeah, very much agree.
But this movie,
No, that's the part that bothers me. It's just you could see that somebody was putting love into that movie. That there was obviously a like corporate interference and somebody who was trying to make something really special.
Yeah.
And they clashed, and it's the reason why there's so many reshoots. There's a reason why there's this like there's a soul to it, yet it feels soulless. Like you can feel so much good from Sam Wilson, from Isaiah Bradley, from Thunderbolt Ross, even like the little widow chick and the sidekick. Like those characters, you can see that the actors are into it. They have good beats that fit with consistent characters. And the performances are good, and I want to see more of those characters. But then everything else surrounding it was so.
Yeah, you can tell that became a movie by committee, which is the death of any movie, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But we should wrap this up. It's been a long one.
All the energy out of the leader. They took all the energy out of Sam Stearns. Samuel Stearns, played by that incredible actor whose name I suddenly forget.
Is that Blake?
Yes, Tim Blake Nelson.
Yeah.
God. How did we go from here to there?
I know. Well, we were. I'm the one who derailed this, talking about the air combat scene.
No. I meant like.
Oh,
in terms of the Marvel movies.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it is you have. I think behind the scenes you had a really drastic creative passing of the torch that happened that was kind of not well executed, because I think you had a lot of people who after Endgame were like, we're good, we have a good ending point here, and have kind of moved on. And I think that just that handoff was rough, as we've seen in the very uneven quality level. Obviously there's still a lot of people involved that care, but I think there's just a lot of new blood, and I think there's also just a lot of just brand management by people who are not creatives, who just got their fingers in it over and over again, along with, I mean, leftovers of COVID, the changing, the directives of these things haven't been working, and so we need to try to kind of get back to some of these themes, both culturally, politically, you name it. It's just, I feel like it's just been a series of course corrections and adjustments for outside circumstances. And I mean, it's just a lot of things. I mean, along with just, I think the MCU at this point, even though there's still a lot of behind the scenes drama that was happening back then, when this was made, I think the people making it were making it because they really wanted to make it, and less because this is something we need to keep making because it makes us a lot of money.
Yeah, these were mavericks that were trying something new. This was a TV director who had directed exactly one movie before.
Yeah, and a movie that did not do well financially, even if it was good.
Right? Yeah. It's a heck of a thing. This movie is quite the cultural tentpole in so many ways.
But yeah, I mean, this has been fun. It's been fun looking at the MCU here, and we'll definitely come back to the MCU, although we've got some other movies to watch first. And we also definitely want to hit some of the other Marvel stuff, and it's on our list, the Marvel stuff pre-MCU. So, yeah.
I would like to watch the Blade movies.
I'm looking forward to the Blade movies. I wanted to ask you...
What's the third one?
we gotta... We gotta watch the bad ones too. Later this year, anybody who's been following us, we watched the great Superman movie and the kind of okay one, and this year we get to finally watch the two really bad ones. So stuff like that, where we're gonna get to and have some fun.
Oh God,
with.
that's on our list.
Yeah, 3 and 4 is later this year. Those would be fun.
Okay.
Anyways, this has been awesome, buddy.
It has been. It has been. Thank you, everybody, for sticking around. This was a long one, and I have much to say, and I rambled, and there's so many other things I was going to talk about, but I didn't because I just need to ramble. Thank you for putting up with me.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Have a good one.
There's doors and corners, kid. If you don't clear the room, if you don't come in slow,